Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 701. Because I am unresigned. Jun Moxie could sense that three powerful auras were currently rushing in this direction. Regardless of whether they were friend or foe, right now was the most critical time for Mei Shuiyan, and she must not be disturbed. Therefore, he immediately escaped into the ground. Mo Xiaoyao and the other two venerables' speed was exceptionally quick. With their full power, they covered the space of several hundred zhang in almost an instant and landed in the middle of the gorge. As they lifted their eyes and looked, they saw only the swirling snow. The place was exceptionally quiet, and not even half the shadow of a human could be seen. This was the place where a terrible lightning tribulation had just taken place. How could there be no human traces at all? This should be the place. The calculations can't be wrong. But why isn't anybody here? Could it be that my judgment was wrong? Mo Xiaoyao furrowed his brows and said in a low voice. There's no mistake. I can sense that this was the exact spot as well. Everyone, let's look around the area carefully. Jia Qingyun said. Something's off. Wei Kong Kun's brows furrowed deeply, and his face turned somewhat strange. Xiao Yao, we've both experienced the tempering of heaven's lightning before. To this day, it haunts my dreams, and I can still remember that scene very clearly. Back then, after I successfully broke through, the entire area was charred as black as charcoal. Everything was burnt to a terrible extent. Even the mountain peak I was on was struck by lightning so hard that it nearly collapsed. My guess is that your situation was not much different as well. But look at this place. He sucked in a deep breath and continued, judging by the might of that lightning storm just now. Even if these three mountain peaks were reduced to flat ground and leveled with the gorge, it wouldn't be a surprise at all. After all, that lightning storm was simply too terrifying. But this place is simply too peaceful. Not to mention the mountains crumbling, even the snow on the ground hasn't been stirred much. Xiao Yao, don't you think that this is too abnormal? Mo Xiaoyao's eyes gleamed darkly as he nodded. It's exactly as you said. I thought of this problem earlier as well. For such a phenomenon to appear, there are only three possibilities. First, that person was well prepared, and his strength had reached the very peak of cultivation, allowing him to directly dispel the lightning bolts completely into formlessness. What's the second possibility? The second possibility is that that person has a magical treasure on his body that can absorb or dispel the power of lightning. Mo Xiaoyao looked around him and continued. The last possibility is that this piece of land is unique and has the ability to absorb lightning without sustaining damage. Wei Kong Kun laughed bitterly and shook his head. I would rather believe in the second and third possibility than the first one. If it's really the first possibility, that person's strength must be so great to the point where it could cause the entire world to despair. I don't think even saint-level experts can do this. It's indeed enough to cause one to despair. Mo Xiaoyao nodded his head and said. The expression on his face was impossible to describe with words. However, there's one thing that we can be certain of. Even if that person does not possess that terrifying level of strength, his abilities are at the minimum, not below ours. That's a clear fact. Indeed, this point is without doubt. The other two nodded rapidly in agreement. We've most likely come a step too late. That person has already finished breaking through, so he must have left immediately. If it were us, we would do the same as well. Mo Wudao looked silently upward at the sky for a moment, then finally shook his head. Let's go. That person probably hasn't gone far. But judging from the situation before our eyes, he probably hasn't suffered any injuries. Our previous plan was based on the person being severely weakened after the breakthrough, giving us a definite chance of success. But now, with just the strength of us three, it's impossible to take down that person without paying an equivalent price. If that person's strength is truly that great, we might even incur his displeasure if we went searching for him now. The three exchanged a glance and departed. Only until they had gone very far, met up with their troops, and left toward the Silver City again did Jun Moxie finally heave a sigh of relief. The strength of these three experts was definitely not something that people like Xiao Qianye could compare with. They were truly powerful experts. Turning around, he saw Mei Shuayan sitting quietly with her eyes tightly shut. A peaceful smile hung on her face, and a pure radiance shone from her entire body. In that moment, Jun Moxie was completely captivated by that sight. After a long time, Jun Moxie suddenly fell onto his B*TT and rolled on the ground. The reason being that the Hongjun pagoda had suddenly begun to churn. Jun Moxie only felt as if his head was being pricked by tens of thousands of needles. Ever since he stopped releasing spiritual qi earlier, his mind had been in a highly anxious state due to the arrival of the lightning tribulation. After that, the three venerable experts appeared, causing him to use the last of his strength to burrow into the ground. While the enemy was around, he didn't feel anything strange because of the adrenaline. But now that the enemy was gone, his mind became relaxed, and he instantly felt the weakness in his body, causing him to tumble to the ground. The Hongjun pagoda had released an ocean's amount of qi earlier. With Jun Moxie's current ability, it was still quite strenuous for him to endure. Moreover, he had maintained that energy flow for such a long time. Later, because of the lightning energy the Hongjun pagoda had absorbed, it released a berserk aura for an instant. With one thing on top of another, Jun Moxie had very nearly lost control of his spirit. The backlash this time was unprecedentedly fierce, surpassing any of the previous times. Due to the danger passing and the fact that Mei Shuayan's breakthrough seemed to be going well, young Master Jun's mind had thoroughly relaxed. As he did so, all the fatigue and the pain suddenly came flooding into his head. He sat down quietly, closed his eyes, and forcefully endured the unspeakable pain in his head. However, he did not make a single sound, afraid that he would disrupt Mei Shuayan's comprehension. Jun Moxie's facial muscles contorted violently, and his body shook and spasmed uncontrollably. Sweat poured down his face in large beads, drenching his clothes thoroughly. The ground's temperature was extremely cold, and once the steamy sweat came into contact with the chilly air, the snow instantly evaporated and turned into white mist which swirled around his body. This time, the white mist was not spiritual qi, but water vapor. It was Jun Moxie's sweat. Just like that, he continued sitting for an unknown amount of time until he completely lost consciousness. After a long time, Jun Moxie finally began to stir again. He could feel a pair of gentle hands wrapped around him, lightly wiping away the sweat on his face. At the same time, a boundless, warm, and powerful Xian qi flowed continuously into his body. He opened his eyes slowly, and saw Mei Shuayan's worried face above his. "How do you feel?" Jun Moxie smiled weakly and asked. "What does it feel like to complete your breakthrough? Did your strength improve a lot?" He glanced around and found out that they'd already returned to the camp. And right now, they were the only two people in the tent. He tried to move his limbs, but his entire body was wrecked with aches and pain. The pain in his head had not subsided due to his loss of consciousness. Instead, it felt even worse than before, as if 10,000 needles were pricking at his brains non-stop. In just a short moment, his forehead was lined with sweat again. It was simply too painful. Moxie, don't move. Lie down and recover in peace. Your mother and Qing Han were here just now, but I told them to go back and rest first and that I'm going to treat you and cannot be disturbed. I thought that you might have some words to tell me. Mei Shuiyan's voice turned gentler, but it seemed to be choking with emotion. You idiot. Why didn't you tell me earlier that you would suffer such a heavy backlash by helping me break through? If you'd told me earlier, even if I were to die, I wouldn't have let you do that. You are really an idiot. Kiki. I naturally have words to say to you. Jun Moxie forced a weak smile onto his face and said in a low voice. Do you know? I was simply too unresigned. I was unresigned to being suppressed all the time. There's always someone stronger stepping down on me and suppressing my existence. That feeling simply sucks. Cough, cough. Ever since I arrived in this world, no matter what I was doing, my opponent's strength was always far above mine, forcefully suppressing me. Every time I broke through and felt my strength increase drastically, I would meet a new enemy again. A new, unconquerable enemy that I couldn't defeat. Every single time, I would be suppressed to the point where I couldn't even breathe. Thus, every time I broke through to a new level of strength, I would continue to exert my utmost strength. A crazed look shone in his eyes, both sharp and profound. This kind of feeling is too unbearable. I'm truly very tired, it's very tough. However, I refuse to allow myself to remain suppressed by others, not against any kind of opponent. I am the evil monarch. I am the king of darkness. I'm unresigned to be beneath someone else. I want to trump over all my enemies, no matter how strong they may be. Mei Shuiyan's eyes turned red. She could clearly feel the frailty in Jun Moxie's heart, as well as the crazy pressure he was constantly under. In the frigid cold of this winter's night, for the first time in his life, the Jun Moxie who was suffering from the pain of a terrible backlash, the evil monarch who was at his weakest point, finally bared his heart and told of his pressure and his unresignation. First, it's the emperor suppressing his loyal subjects. Then, a powerful force like Blizzard's Silver City appeared like an archaic mountain, far away and crushingly heavy. After that, the Shui Han Manor followed closely behind, bursting with arrogance to bully my Jun family. Before those storms had ceased, even the three Holy Lands joined hands to suppress me. Behind them is perhaps the misty illusory manor, or perhaps some even more powerful force. Jun Moxie closed his eyes and his face glowed with anger. Not mentioning the things in the future, the trump cards that the three Holy Lands hold are seemingly endless. Just when I thought that Supremes were the strongest experts, a superior Supreme popped out. When I assumed that that was the peak, a whole bunch of venerables appeared. Then, now there are saints who command those venerables. This kind of pressure has left me truly powerless. It feels as if no matter which direction I turn in, there's an immovable mountain standing there. I feel aggrieved. Truly fecking aggrieved. Jun Moxie drew a shaky breath and lifted his chin proudly. A cold light shone fiercely in his eyes. Therefore, I shall smash them apart. I shall grind them all into pieces. Each and every single one of them. This sentence was spat out through his gritted teeth, one word at a time. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 702. I want to break through too. That's why I chose to spread the news of this fight for Silver City several months beforehand. I wanted to let the entire world know. I've had my fill of being suppressed. I want a roaring battle. I want to take back everything my Jun family has lost. Whether it be the debt of blood, or pride, whether it be honor or lives. Whatever is owed to me, I want to take every single bit back. And with interest. Thus, although I knew that the three Holy Lands would definitely interfere and try to suppress me again with their powerful strength, although I know that this choice would be fraught with danger, I still chose to fight. I choose to destroy my path of retreat and charge forward regardless. Because I fear. I'm truly fearful. I'm afraid that if I continue to hide and retreat, my will to fight will be completely corroded away. Jun Moxie leaned exhausted against Mei Shuiyan's arms. His brows were tightly furrowed as he endured the unspeakable pain in his mind. However, his eyes were clear and sharp. You've said before that this is a fight for pride, and that the terms of the battle are not fair. But I've still decided to go down this path. And although you disagree, you still chose to support me fully. The three Holy Lands' target this time is not you. It's me. I believe that even if I backed off, retreating as far as to the edge of the heavens, they would still corner me until I have no paths left. Jun Moxie's lips were curved in a cruel manner. In that case, I'll rather give them a heaven-shocking fight. This battle is the truly important battle. If we are victorious, we will be received as an equal, able to fight independently and defiantly against the three Holy Lands. If we are defeated, we will be doomed for eternity. Therefore, we cannot lose. But I was unable to improve my own strength, so I could only use my strength to raise yours. Jun Moxie looked steadily at Mei Shuiyan. As long as you manage to progress to the 4th level of the Venerable Realm, even if we lost this time, it wouldn't be a terrible loss. That's the most basic guarantee. I need to be guaranteed of everyone's safety at the very least before I can talk about other things. Even if this method is dangerous, I have no choice but to risk it. Mei Shuiyan's tears flowed like a fountain, and she laid her head on Jun Moxie's chest, feeling the pressure in his heart. The more she thought about it, the more her heart ached. Even if she was encircled and attacked, even if she was left on the verge of death, she would always have Tianfa Forest behind her as her shield. As long as she did not die, she would always be left completely undisturbed the moment she returned to Tianfa Forest. Nobody would dare to enter Tianfa Forest to deal with her, even saint-level experts would not dare. But Jun Moxie was different. He could only face everything himself. He seemed arrogant and unwavering, but that was because he had no choice but to be like that. He had already lost all paths of retreat a long time ago. Behind him was the Jun family, a huge, yet delicate family. The moment Jun Moxie failed to withstand the weight, the entire Jun family would instantly be torn to shreds, to a point where even the chickens in the family would not be spared. The pressure on Jun Moxie was simply too massive. Help me up. Jun Moxie could feel his teeth chattering with pain, but he still gritted them forcefully and grunted again. Help me up. Mei Shuiyan supported his neck and pushed him up. He sat firmly on the chair, but she had no idea what he was trying to do. Now, I want you to use your aura against me. Jun Moxie panted heavily and said. His eyes were blazing with a crazed madness. Use your powerful cultivation. Release your aura. And lock that pressure on me. Focus all your aura attack on me alone. You've broken through. And I want to break through as well. Jun Moxie panted heavily and raised his hand. Come. Use your aura and pressure me. Hurry. Mei Shuayan looked dumbly back at him. Xia. Are you all right? To use her aura to attack at this point, wouldn't that directly kill him? Especially since she had just broken through not long ago. Her ability to control her strength was still far from refined. Back in Tianxiang, the venerable Du Ju also used his aura to suppress me. But I ended up profiting from it. Jun Moxie knew that if he did not explain things clearly to her, Mei Shuayan would definitely not use that attack on him. Thus, he could only explain to her patiently. The heaven-earth spiritual qi here, furthermore, is tens of times greater than it was in Tianxiang. He used his own strength to draw upon the power of heaven and earth, turning it into a pressurizing force, a tangible force. Jun Moxie gasped weakly for breath and continued. I don't know what that method is called, but I know that such a technique is similar to your world cage. Thus, I'm sure you can do it as well. Trust me, doing so is very beneficial for me. Now, use your strongest force and focus it all on me. Jun Moxie closed his eyes. So that's the case. Mei Shuayan only relaxed when she knew that this would not harm Jun Moxie, and the latter could also use this method to cultivate. She took 2 steps backward, inhaled a breath of air and calmed her heart down, returning it to its usual tranquil state. Then, she stood motionlessly as a surge of aura gushed out of her body. The aura was swift and seemingly unending, connecting the heavens and earth. In an instant, and pressure that seemed to have come from ancient times appeared. That's still not right. Your aura lacks the killing intent. Moreover, it lacks the intense oppressive force of something between the lines of life and death. I want you to close your eyes. And imagine that the person before you is not me. Imagine that the person before you is Lu Qiu, that perverted bastard. He's about to do some lewd things to you. And he's trying to molest you. Jun Moxie guided with his eyes closed. Except, his words nearly caused Mei Shuayan to rush over and give him a good kicking. Think of that. Wouldn't that trigger her killing intent immediately? Strangely, as she thought that, a killing intent began to appear. Yes. That's the way. Continue to increase the power. Unleash them to your heart's content. Jun Moxie was feeling quite excited. He could already sense the dense and incredibly pure power of heaven and earth gushing toward him. Mei Shuayan closed her eyes determinedly, and her essence qi burst out in an instant, connecting with the power of heaven and earth. Slowly, it formed into a powerful hurricane that swept toward Jun Moxie. Ga. Jun Moxie felt a huge pressure atop his body, as if he was the monkey son Wukong pinned under the 5-fingered mountain. It was as if his skeleton was about to be crushed into powder, and his flesh into meat paste. He could not help but suppress a groan in his heart. Feck. It's so powerful. Mei Shuayan's strength had already far surpassed Du Ju's. Now, not only had she broken through, because Jun Moxie had continued to pour pure spiritual qi into her body. Even after she had broken through, she had almost reached the middle layer of the 4th level of the Venerable Realm. Right now, Mei Shuayan's cultivation had already reached the peak of the primary 4th level. Thus, the heaven-earth spiritual qi she could manipulate was over 100 times more than Du Ju could. With such a powerful pressure, an ordinary Supreme Realm expert would most likely be crushed to death in an instant. Just as Jun Moxie felt that he could not withstand the pressure any longer, the Hongjun pagoda in his consciousness rumbled with a hong sound. Then, it began to rotate, sending a multicolored light radiating in all directions. In the instant the Hongjun pagoda started rotating, The stabbing pain in Jun Moxie's head disappeared abruptly. It was like the receding tide. With a shoo sound, it disappeared cleanly. At the same time, an ocean of heaven-earth spiritual chi flooded in from his head. A whale drinking water. The Hongjun Pagoda was like an endless abyss, crazily funneling the heaven-earth spiritual chi that Mei Shuayan sent over, and then emptying it into Jun Moxie's body. Outside, the people who were waiting while Mei Shuayan treated Jun Moxie were all shocked until their mouths hung wide open. Just last night, a strange lightning storm had appeared, causing everyone to be frightened out of their beds. But who would have thought that in just half a night, another anomaly would appear again? The stars in the sky seemed to have stopped moving, and a huge patch of blackness suddenly appeared overhead, spanning several tens of li. It was so dark that one would not be able to see their 5 fingers even if they stretched their hands out before their eyes. But in the blink of an eye, the huge patch of black disappeared. However, numerous strange tornadoes had appeared in the air. Everyone could clearly sense the existence of these tornadoes, but no one could see them. The tornadoes swirled around each other, howling viciously as they surged toward Jun Moxie and Mei Shuayan's tent. All the Xian beasts, including the beast kings, were so scared stiff that they stayed on the ground, trembling with fear. Because their senses could faintly feel the kind of aura that belonged to Saint Kings. Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyun looked at the spiritual chi storm and exclaimed together, "Heaven-earth spiritual chi! How could there be such pure heaven-earth spiritual chi?" Both of them were clever people. With such a dense amount of heaven-earth spiritual chi, could they stop themselves from trying to absorb it? But the moment they revolved their cultivation, they realized that although the heaven-earth spiritual chi had become dense enough that it had nearly turned material, not a single bit of it was leaking outward at all. No matter how they revolved their cultivation technique, they could not absorb even a single bit. They could only watch helplessly as all the spiritual chi flowed into Jun Moxie's tent. It should be Venerable Mei using her powers to treat young Master Jun. Everyone, there's no need to worry. Feng Wanyun sighed lightly and told the anxious-looking Dongfang Wen Xian and Guan Qinghan. As soon as they heard this, Dongfang Wen Xian, Guan Qinghan, Jun Wu Yi, Dongfang Wen Jian, and the rest relaxed visibly. Inside the tent, as the heaven-earth spiritual chi flooded in crazily, Jun Moxie's complexion turned increasingly better, becoming more and more calm. Mei Shuayan opened her eyes and looked at Jun Moxie's face. She was finally able to relax. She concentrated on powering the technique with her full strength, causing the chi flow to seem like a divine dragon rising out of the ocean. She once again expanded her control, gathering all the heaven-earth spiritual chi she could control to flood together again. The spiritual chi storm once again surged up. Again and again. Wave after wave of pure heaven-earth spiritual chi surged over, causing the heaven-earth spiritual chi in the entire mountain range to be emptied out. And when the spiritual chi was refilled again from the outside, it was emptied out again. The several tens of li of sky had turned into a huge whirlpool, a bottomless hole. Avaricious, mysterious, powerful. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 703. Through the endless rounds of Samsara, only love is eternal. Slowly, after the shocking waves of spiritual chi had stabilized into a pattern, the crowd finally left. Even Big Bear, whose strength had reached the superior supreme level, was frightened until his legs felt soft. This was not to say that Big Bear was a timid person. But this kind of natural, kingly aura was simply too scary. This aura was the kind that radiated from a monarch among beasts, causing him to want to bow down to it. Forcefully controlling himself, Big Bear stood up shakily. But the instant he stood up, he felt an uncontrollable urge in his pants. Looking around warily, he hurriedly ran off sneakily. Then, after choosing a hidden spot, he squatted down beside a tall tree and hurriedly unfastened his trousers. In an instant, a loud slopping sound rang out, and an unbelievable stench rose into the air. After a long time, Big Bear stood up and put on his trousers again. This time, his expression was much better. Having relieved himself, even his mood had improved greatly. He even patted the tree's trunk as he tied his waistband, turning his hairy head to look at the tall tree. Ah, what a straight tree! You're so tall and straight. Could it be that you've been made to stand still as a punishment? This big bear here has given you a lot of fertilizer today, so I guess this is also a kind of fortuitous encounter for you. As he laughed and patted his B*TT, a few other shuffling sounds could be heard from behind him. A few other beast kings also walked out while adjusting their trousers. From the looks of it, there were no exceptions. It seemed that everyone had been scared silly by the aura. Their faces were all pale and colorless. However, these beast kings were still better than before. In the past, when they came across a powerful expert breaking through, they would crap themselves on the spot. When the 6 great beast kings broke through back then, the entire Tianfa forest was covered in land mines. At least, these Xian beasts now knew how to take care of their own face. They also learnt to cherish their clothes, even going as far as to find a discreet spot to settle their weakened stomachs. They've truly improved. Mei Shuiyan's powerful aura was simply too shocking for them. This was far above that time when the 6 great beast kings underwent their advancement. Even a strong fellow like Big Bear was filled with a trembling heart. Although Mei Shuiyan had already controlled the aura to the best of her capability, doing her best to concentrate it completely on Jun Moxie and not affect anyone else, the boundless pressure still covered the entire area. Even if there wasn't any real killing strength in it, the Xian beasts were still affected greatly. This was an aura that even in their bloodline, they were naturally submissive to. It was a reverence that came from deep within their bones. If it was someone else who worked up such a huge aura, it might have even roused their fighting spirit. But right now, that was not possible. They could only worship Mei Shuiyan. What are you panicking about? Big Bear scolded as he fastened his trousers. Line up properly for me and go one at a time. Don't create a stink here. How uncultured. Do you think that this is your house? You're not throwing your own face when you behave shamelessly here, but the face of our Tianfa forest. Understood? The Xian beasts made some noises and nodded rapidly, but it was unclear whether they really understood or not. But one could only pity this tree, it was soon going to be completely drowned in scat and piss. However, there were perhaps some benefits to be found in its misfortune. Several hundred years later, this tree would be the tallest in the forest. The lushness of its leaves and the thickness of its branches would be unrivaled among its fellow trees. Inside the tent, the roof above the two's head had already been blown away long ago. Gargantuan amounts of heaven-earth spiritual qi and green, pure spiritual qi constantly flooded in, before disappearing without a trace. This small tent seemed like a black hole that swallowed an endless amount of heaven-earth spiritual qi. Young Master Jun's face turned redder and redder, becoming extremely radiant to behold. In fact, it turned to a horrifying shade of purple before suddenly reverting back to its normal state. Jun Moxie signaled for Mei Shuiyan to stop. She nodded and instantly pulled back her aura, dismissing her killing intent and allowing her aura to stabilize. This round of refueling had filled the Hongjun Pagoda with so much spiritual qi that it was nearly on the verge of exploding. The amount of spiritual qi it held was now greater than even before it had expended anything. As for the spirit energy in Jun Moxie's body, it had risen greatly because of the large amounts of spiritual qi that had passed through his body. Right now, he could once again feel the precipice of a breakthrough. Perhaps with a bit more comprehension and a bit of fortune, he would be able to break through to the 5th level of the Hongjun Pagoda. Right now, there was only a thin barrier separating him, as thin as a piece of paper. With a single poke, it would immediately break. In the process of this, Jun Moxie could clearly feel the invasion of his heart demons. His 7 emotions and 6 sensory pleasures rose as they tried to lead his heart astray. His past life, current life, all the events that had happened in his 2 lives flashed through his mind, every single scene vivid and clear. His heart would be filled with rage one moment and tender love the next. Then, he would suddenly be consumed by greed and then become full of happiness. His eyes glowed red with hatred, then shrinked with fear in a split second. All kinds of complicated feelings interchanged within his heart: extreme joy, extreme grief, extreme love. In that moment, Jun Moxie could only hold on resolutely to the sliver of consciousness in his soul. As for everything else, he completely did not bother himself with them. No matter how much the disruptions were, they were unable to shake his mind. Regardless of what kind of illusions they were, whether he died or his wife and children torn from him or his family completely destroyed, even if his loved ones were dying in front of his eyes, his heart would not waver. It was as if he couldn't see the illusions. It seemed like only an instant had passed, but it was also like he'd experienced the rebirths of thousands of lives. When he opened his eyes again, he actually felt a sense of sorrow and a distant feeling no matter what the illusion in front of him was. It was as if he'd really lived 1,000 lives and returned to reality again. Even the instant he looked at Mei Shuiyan, he couldn't help but feel deeply shaken deep within. Because in that moment, he actually felt a strange distant feeling. They were a short distance away, and yet seemingly poles apart. Do you feel a disconnect with everything before you now? No matter who and what it is. Do you feel a loneliness as if you'd experienced countless centuries and millenniums? Mei Shuiyan smiled lightly and looked at him as she asked in a strange voice. She was, after all, a person who had walked through the same path before. The moment she saw Jun Moxie's expression, she had already determined what he'd gone through. Exactly. What's the reason for that? Or could it be that everyone who broke through would feel like that? Jun Moxie tested his essence qi and felt a golden energy rumble in his veins. The energy seemed boundless and his strength felt limitless. It was as if he could lift up a mountain with a single hand. Generally, that's the case. From what I can tell, you are at the 2nd level of Venerable right now. This thing clearly happened before my eyes, but I can still scarcely believe it. How truly inconceivable, to think that your breakthrough would be so quick and so smooth. And so extremely odd. The strange look in Mei Shuiyan's eyes intensified. Once a person was successful in their breakthrough, they would instantly feel a slight disillusioned feeling. It's truly as if they'd experienced countless lives and these experiences were in fact real to them. Even when their senses returned to reality, they would instead feel a sense of unfamiliarity with it. Back then, I spent 3 whole years before I managed to adjust my views back to normal. That is you. Jun Moxie blinked and smiled. Who is this young master? I'm a supreme genius. There's no way I would be as dumb as a silly girl like you. Look. I'm alright already. Haha. His eyes and his expression turned. And in an instant, he completely recovered back to normal. Mei Shuayan widened her eyes and looked at him, completely speechless. Who would have thought that this baddie whose face was even thicker than the city walls would recover right after breaking through? This was simply too unbelievable. One had to know that that was an experience of the thousands of rebirths, the wheel of Samsara. Could it be that even that did not have any effects on him? Could it be that this fellow was truly heartless to such a ridiculous extent? Or could it be that peerless geniuses were really all like that? Silly lass. You've forgotten about a very important matter. Jun Moxie looked at her gently. At the time of this peerless genius's breakthrough, I had already found love in my heart. Furthermore, the object of that love is right beside me. Thus, I was able to walk out of that state so quickly. When you broke through back then, your heart was completely empty. Although you were unfettered, you were also devoid of feelings. That was why you went through 3 years of disillusionment. And when you were breaking through to the 3rd level, you were bound by your 7 emotions. You need to understand that love is the origins of life. Throughout the endless rounds of samsara, only love is eternal. If you put it like that, it does make sense. Mei Shuayan fell silent for a long time before nodding seriously. I was originally a heartless person, and nothing could affect me at all. There was no most heartless, only more heartless. But for some reason, the heavens had granted me another life, one filled with love. Whether it's family love, the love between friends, or love of lovers, I've managed to experience them all. Thus, right now is the time when I'm the most complete. Which is why, although this trial couldn't be called completely harmless, it was truly not a large obstacle, and I could naturally recover very quickly. Jun Moxie smiled lightly. His face was only left with a trace of warmth, and his aura had changed greatly. A kind of natural grace and bearing slowly appeared through his body. So what about you? Did you comprehend anything after breaking through to the 4th level? Jun Moxie smiled and looked at Mei Shuayan. Did you comprehend any heaven-shocking abilities? The kind that could instantly wipe out tens of millions of people? How could there be such an exaggerated ability in this world? Mei Shuayan rolled her eyes and pouted. However, I've indeed gained some profits. Only, compared to a monstrous character like you, mine is only a small matter. The method you used to break through was simply too unique. To think that you could use the powerful aura that others use against you to break through. Furthermore, there's no harm in using it at all. That's simply too inconceivable. This mystery was undoubtedly something that Mei Shuayan would never understand even if she thought about it for 100 times. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 704. Night Exploration of Silver City. This matter is indeed queer and can only happen with me. Even if I explained it to you in detail now, you might not be able to understand. Besides, I also only knew of this method not long ago. You can call it an accidental finding even. Jun Moxie thought for a moment and said. Thinking back to the incident with Du Ju, he could not help but to laugh. Let's go. I think everyone is worried sick with waiting. Mei Shuayan nodded and followed after him. Since Jun Moxie did not wish to talk about the matter, she would not ask further. Some matters were secrets that belonged to Jun Moxie alone. Even if he wanted to explain them to her, she wouldn't listen to it. Because she could hear the intense loneliness and melancholy in his words. I was originally a heartless person, and nothing could affect me at all. There was no most heartless, only more heartless. But for some reason, the heavens granted me another life, one filled with love. This sentence sounded like nonsense and was difficult to understand. Even Mei Shuai-yen was unable to comprehend the meaning behind it. However, she could hear the oddness in his voice. Thus, she chose to not ask. She only wished to use her love to heal the scars in her beloved's heart. Nothing more. When Jun Moxie and Mei Shuai-yen stepped out together, everyone could clearly sense that these two had changed. But as for in what way, it was difficult to tell. They only knew that they'd changed. And greatly too. After so long, the camp finally calmed down. The crowd slowly dispersed, only leaving Jun Wu-yi, Dongfang Wen Xian, Solitary Eagle, Feng Wan Yun, Jun Moxie, and Mei Shuai-yen. Tomorrow will be second day of the second month and the date I've set when I said, destroy the Silver City when the flowers blossom in spring. I plan to make a trip into the Silver City tonight. Jun Moxie looked at everyone and continued. It's always better to know what you're up against. You're going alone? Dongfang Wen Xian furrowed her brows with worry. Will it be all right? It'll be fine. Jun Moxie smiled confidently. If I can't do it, nobody else in the world would be able to. Although Moxie's word sounds arrogant, it's indeed the truth. Jun Wu-yi smiled and supported his nephew. Dongfang Wen Xian turned and looked at Mei Shuai-yen, who also nodded. Her face was filled with confidence. Then, you must return early and not let us worry too much. We've already been worried sick by you today. Dongfang Wen Xian sighed and said in a somewhat apprehensive tone. The heart of mothers were always like that. Even if their children were extremely capable, they would still be that child that needed their sheltering. Jun Moxie nodded rapidly and turned to his uncle. Third uncle, I think you should rearrange the battle lineups again tonight. Try to design some battle arrays that can deal with their many experts' joint attack formations. In the battle tomorrow, we will definitely be disadvantaged in this area and can only use this method to prolong the battle, allowing our aid to arrive. You're only saying this now. Even the cucumber dishes on the table have already grown cold by now. I've already designed several formations and plans to counter this a long time ago. Jun Wu-yi smiled lightly and said, relax. Even if the enemy has some powerful transcendent level experts with them, I wouldn't allow them to carry out their executions so easily. Haha. Everyone laughed. They were naturally very clear on what this execution referred to. Jun Wu-yi had a somewhat strange look on his face, and Jun Moxie also looked somewhat unnatural. The uncle and nephew duo looked rather uneasy. Jun Wu-yi roughly knew what Jun Moxie's intention was for his trip tonight. His purpose was definitely not as simple as a simple scouting. He had a greater goal in mind. Han Yen Yao. Jun Moxie was indeed planning to go and take a look for himself and see if this girl whom all the tragedy originated from was really worthy of his third uncle's full-hearted love. If this matter waited until all the dust had settled, it would perhaps be too late. Thus, Jun Moxie was very worried. After all, everything had happened because of her. Although Jun Wu-yi was very anxious, he wanted to know for himself as well. In fact, he might be even more worried than Jun Moxie. He didn't know what kind of feelings his Ya would have as he led his troops to attack Blizzard's Silver City. As he watched Jun Moxie leave, Jun Wu-yi took out a handkerchief from his breast pocket and opened it slowly. There was a lock of very soft hair wrapped within it, and on the handkerchief, there were 4 rows of words, 10 years without combing, My hair has grown long for my husband. Looking toward Tian Xiang every night. Never turning back in this life. Jun Wuyi suddenly felt an unknown, secure feeling in his heart. She would never disappoint him. My beloved Yao would never disappoint me. The sun gradually drifted toward the west. The sky gradually darkened, and the snowy ground reflected a silvery light, shining clear and pure. Jun Moxie wore a robe that was whiter than the snow and flitted out of the tent quietly. Mei Shuayan stood behind, watching his figure disappear into the dusk. She stood there looking for a long time, before finally turning around. Jun Moxie dashed through the land carefreely, traveling towards the snow-capped mountains with a speed akin to lightning. Nobody could catch even the shadow of his figure. The speed of the yin-yang escape art had definitely exceeded any movement technique in this world more than once. With this kind of shocking speed, he only took a short moment before view of the city covered in ice and hidden deep within the snowy mountains appeared within his sight. Silver Blizzard City was truly worth its reputation. Looking at it from afar, the city of ice was surrounded by countless swirling snowflakes, causing it to look grand and mysterious. 7 tall peaks surrounded the massive city from all sides like a ring of stars. Although the sky was filled with falling snow, the stars could still be seen, shining brightly above it. The starlight shone onto the snowy ground, casting the mountain peaks with a myriad of brilliant colors. The colors gathered and formed into a radiant beam which fell gently upon the silver city. This ancient city of ice shone with magical colors, as though it was a dream. No matter who it was, the first time they laid their eyes upon this city, a dreamy and illusory feeling would rise in their hearts. Before the silver city, there were 4 huge ice pillars. Each pillar carried a word: wind, snow, silver, city. Although it looked plain, the pillars carried a grand air around them, simple and heroic. They were like 4 giants standing before the gates of the Silver Blizzard City, never sleeping. The sky had already turned dark, but there were still many people moving about in the Silver City. These were the white-robed low-level disciples. These disciples had varying expressions on their faces. Some were filled with joy, some with fear, and some with ardent fervor. Because today, many great characters were going to enter the Silver City. They were going to use their powerful strengths to help them to resist the outside invaders. Each one of these characters were legendary figures. The names of each of these experts were well known throughout the world, and their feats were awe-inspiring enough to write stories and songs of. The arrival of these people were enough to cause these young disciples to put down their worries. Even as they patrolled the streets, many of them were discussing in low voices. Hey, I say, with our current strength, do you think we'll be able to defend against the Jun family's attack? What kind of joke are you making? Even without these seniors, the Jun family is only an insignificant bunch in front of our Silver Blizzard City. With the seniors here now, I think we should be worrying about the Jun family instead. That may be so, but recently, I've heard people say that the Jun family's strength had grown very rapidly. Che, no matter how strong they've become, they can't be stronger than the 3 Holy Lands, right? The experts of the 3 Holy Lands are simply what? Simply ridiculous. Like a cow flying into the sky. That's true. They're simply too powerful. You're a person who even worries about falling off your bed in your sleep and dying. You truly have too many things to worry about. Jun Moxie scoffed and rolled his eyes as he passed these guards. Where would he have the leisure to bother himself with the opinions of these young disciples? He continued like a sharp sword toward the large hall at the very center. It was already so late. but the fires were still lit. The big battle was tomorrow. And not only were they not resting in bed and preparing themselves, they actually gathered together. If they were not meeting about the Jun family matters, would they do such an abnormal thing? Those dregs of the Xiao family wouldn't possibly be in the mood to dance and party at this time, right? Jun Moxie easily passed through the thick walls made with thousand-years-old Xian ice, without a single sound or ripple. Without much effort, Jun Moxie had infiltrated into the heart of the Silver City. This large hall was indeed very bustling at the moment, and most of the people here were unfamiliar to him. On the main seats, there was a man and a woman. The man was dashing and suave, while the woman looked pure and graceful. They looked to be only around 30 years old, and from the looks of it, they were the Silver City's city lord and madam. In fact, a slight resemblance to Han Yen Meng could be seen. Only, the two's expressions were not very fine now. Sitting with them were about a dozen old men. They should be the spirit Xian elders of the Silver Blizzard City Han family. On the other side, there was a white-haired old man sitting just below the city lord's position. His hair was as white as silver, and his skin was smooth and soft like a baby. This must be the grand elder of the Xiao family, Xiao Xingyun. Because Jun Moxie could immediately tell with a single glance that this person's Xian Qi cultivation was at the 4th level of Spirit Xian. Furthermore, he had been stuck at this level for a long time. He could see clearly now that he'd broken through, that there was a mysterious break along his meridians. And this break would result in him being unable to step into the truly powerful levels of the Supreme Realm for the rest of his life. This should be the work of his grandmother back then. Jun Moxie could not help but praise his grandmother in his heart. This grandmother was quite something. Her methods were truly ruthless. Without making a sound, she'd cut off the future path of her enemy. Behind Xiao Xingyun, there were another dozen over white-haired and white-bearded old men. Their clothes were white as snow, and from the looks of it, they were from the Xiao family. Opposite them, 3 middle-aged men were seated. Their expressions were lofty, and their bearings were natural and unrestrained. Their faces were like warm jade, but their eyes shone with a cold, dazzling brilliance. In the deepest part of their eyes was an archaic aura as if they'd transcended beyond mortality. Of the 3, not a single one looked simple. From a glance, it was obvious that they were the leading characters of the 3 Holy Lands. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 705. Conflicts within Blizzard Silver City. Behind the 3 were Xiao Tianya, Hua Fengwen, and Chu Wuqing. The 3 of them didn't look much different from the last encounter except for the mostly inconspicuous anger and helplessness on their face. How could they not be angry when they failed to scare the enemy and even got their comrades killed? It was one of the sulkiest moments in the 3 venerables' lives. Only the 6 of them from the 3 Holy Lands were present, but it was more than sufficient to represent the authority of the 3 Holy Lands. When Jun Moxie sneaked into the hall, Han Zhanmeng was saying slowly, looking concerned, "I'm sure all of you know what the root cause and happenings that have led to the situation today are, so I will not elaborate on those. As for the matter about the Jun family, I suggest we wait and only react. If we participate in any preemptive attacks, I'm afraid we will be blamed for winning with numbers, and the reputation of the 3 Holy Lands might be damaged." Xiao Xingyun snorted. "So can I take that you mean the Xiao family has to bear all the consequences because it's all our fault? I see. All you want is to give up on us and hand us over to the Jun family so that there will be no more conflicts and battles." You're exaggerating what I've said. Han Zhanmeng remained calm. I'm just trying to say that it's all just karma. I'm sure you know that justice may be sometimes late but never absent. Everyone knows what happened in the past. Are you trying to say that you can bully the Jun family, but you can't accept the fact that they'll seek revenge one day? So if you can face the Jun family this time and fight them off, of course I won't be stopping you. Han Zhanmeng made an awkward smile. Then what if we can't? Aren't you still hinting that the Silver City will not help our family even if we are going to be slaughtered? Xiao Xingyun laughed coldly and started sharply at Han Zhanmeng. Am I still exaggerating? Let me ask you. Our family has been so loyal to the Silver City for all these generations. But what do we get back in return? Getting abandoned? No support? Master Han, I am afraid what you have said is too cruel. Having been briefed by his father, Han Zhanmeng obviously refused to concede. However, with the support from the three Holy Lands, the Xiao family was holding on to their firm stance. So they began quarreling in the hall, which was very unusual. And an explicit disagreement between the master and the first elder was also unprecedented. Mo Xiao Yao just watched indifferently. He had no intentions of interfering. First elder, do we have to trace back all the things you did in the past? Han Zhanmeng's wife Xue Shuangqing frowned. Did your family consult us when you sent your men for the Jun family? We only knew when everything had already happened and the rumors had spread all around the continent. Were you being loyal when you made all these decisions without letting us know? Were you being loyal when you refused to stop and return when we asked? When you were back, the master asked you to stop all actions against the Jun family. But 3 years later you murdered 2 more young men of the Jun family. Do you know how disgusting your bullying behaviors were? Ask yourself. Have you ever regarded yourselves as the subordinates of the Silver City? When your lone actions caused so much trouble, triggering their revenge, you expect the Silver City to be responsible for it? What kind of logic is this? Now you want us to be your scapegoat while your family can continue growing your secret forces? Do you think it's all so easy? Xue Shuangqing's face was flushed red. But isn't your family the master of Blizzard Silver City? How could you not provide safety for your subordinates? Then what is the meaning of being loyal to you? As a leader, is this the right thing to do? Are you really going to abandon your subordinates and hide behind the walls? Xiao Xingyun's eyes flashed as he threw questions back at them. If you can't fulfill your duties as the leader of the Silver City, then I will have to ask you to hand over the position as the master and the authority over the Silver City. We can't tolerate a leader who's so weak. Your family brings shame to the Silver City. If you don't dare represent the Silver City, then let us do it. Xiao Xingyun looked around at everyone as he said loudly. Ha! I only see that all you want is the position of the master. Your rebellious ambition is finally exposed. Xiao Xingyun, I'm sure you've been planning for today for a very long time, haven't you? Han Zhanmeng squinted his eyes at Xiao Xingyun. Han Zhanmeng, stop trying to blame me. You are a useless coward. How could you still be the master? Just because you're the eldest son of the Han family? Even the seniors of the 3 Holy Lands have now witnessed your cowardly agenda of abandoning your subordinates just to save yourself. What else do you want? Do you still want to pressure me as the master? No. From now on, the Xiao family no longer recognizes you as the master. Xiao Xingyun snorted coldly. Very well. Xiao Xingyun. You've finally fully exposed your intentions. Han Zhanmeng stared at Xiao Xingyun coldly. Let me ask you. Where's the 3rd and the 6th elder? Did you kill them? Where's Mu Shuatong and Little Meng? Xiao Xingyun. I must admit you're patient to wait till now before you revealed your true intentions. Don't try to digress. We're talking about the imminent threat from the Jun family. How would I know where the group of people led by the third elder? Or maybe they are having fun somewhere. Xiao Xingyun laughed coldly. Don't forget, Xiao Han and Xiao Fengwu are also in the group. So I'm also worried. Oh, did you send men to kill them because you were afraid that we would try to contest your position? It makes sense. You only have daughters, so they can't inherit the position. So you're afraid the Xiao family will eventually inherit your position. How dare you? How brutal. How can you destroy the future of the whole Silver City just because of your selfish intentions? Xiao Xingyun returned favor. Everyone was suddenly a little bit moved by what he said. Some turned to look at Han Yenmeng with a suspicious expression. What Xiao Xingyun said about Han Zhanmeng having no heirs had always been something uneasy for everyone in the Silver City. Han Zhanmeng was so outraged that he trembled as his eyes turned red. He had already sensed something ominous with what Xiao Xingyun had said. Xiao Xingyun had said that he didn't know where the third elder was. But now he was self-contradictory. What was happening was very obvious. Xiao Xingyun, you're the brutal one. Han Zhanmeng smacked on the arm of his chair as he stood up. He stared into Xiao Xingyun's eyes and said word by word, "You will pay the price for what you have done." Pay the price? I've already paid. The Xiao family have done so for many generations. Xiao Xingyun laughed madly. Hundreds of years of subjugation. Isn't that enough? Is our loyalty not enough? Han Zhanmeng. You don't have to make more useless effort. Jun Moxie could not have imagined that he would witness the internal conflicts of Blizzard's Silver City. Seeing that everyone from the three Holy Lands was silently watching despite the intensifying quarrel, Jun Moxie immediately formed the deduction that the Xiao family might have reached some consensus with the three Holy Lands. Or why would Xiao Xingyun be so blunt right now with all the venerables here? He was not the master of Blizzard's Silver City after all. He would usually not be worthy to even speak loudly in the presence of the venerables. Who could have imagined that these dignified guys from the three Holy Lands would actually participate in this sort of private conflict for power? Xiao Xingyun, maybe I should give you some awards for your shamelessness. The group led by the third elder had died. The two survivors from the Han family would not have enough time to come up here. But those from the Xiao family were still alive despite sustaining permanent injuries. They must be hidden by the Xiao family somewhere in the city. I will get them and let them expose your agenda. I will see how the hypocrites from the three Holy Lands react. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 706. True Cruelty. Jun Moxie snickered darkly and flew forward with a whoosh. 13 people were deployed for Blizzard's Silver City back then, 6 elders and 7 swords. On top of that, Xiao Han, Mu Shuetong, Han Yenmeng, and Xiao Fengwu also went. The third elder, fifth elder, and 7 swords were surrounded by Xiao family and had died in the battle. However, the Xiao family had deployed 4 elders, second elder Xiao Buyu, as well as the 6th, 8th, and 9th elders, and they were definitely not wiped out. Jun Moxie had driven Xiao Buyun to self-destruction after making him strip and dance in front of everyone, while 6th elder was killed when Jun Moxie stabbed his sword through his chest. However, he did not kill the remaining 2 elders, but merely chopped their legs off. As to the 2 youths from the Xiao family, while he had killed Xiao Fengwu, he only made Xiao Han a thoroughly crippled man. It did not look like he did not survive. so it made no sense for him to disappear without a trace. You guys wanted to get the Lord's position in a fair way. How could it be that easy? Yes. I just want to make you people uncomfortable. Let you guys chew on flies while you are eating. I want to see how shameless you can get. If I can't toy you pieces of shut to death, I'm not Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie bolted across. As he flew, Mo Xiaoyao, who had been resting with his eyes closed, suddenly lifted his head and glanced at the grand hall with suspicion in his eyes. Though his glance was not directed at anyone in particular, the threatening aura from the thunderous look in his eyes was enough to silence all the bickering people. With his fourth-level spiritual sense, Venerable Mo Xiaoyao clearly felt a great presence which appeared and disappeared suddenly. He scanned around slowly, alertness and suspicion in his eyes. Unable to locate the source, he closed his eyes unwillingly. Could it be that my intuition is wrong? It was not wrong. There indeed was someone, and from his skills, his abilities don't seem to be beneath either of us. Wei Kong-kun quietly transmitted to Mo Xiaoyao. Mo Xiaoyao nodded and quietly replied, "Observe and react. If he appears again, let's combine forces and force him to reveal himself in one strike." Once Jun Moxie was out of the hall, he quickly spread his spiritual awareness around, checking every single room, not missing a single thing, at an extraordinary speed. This was his own spiritual awareness and was extremely difficult for anyone to discover it, even for experts with greater abilities than Jun Moxie. This was a skill he had attained in one of his breakthroughs, Heaven's Net Awareness. Vast as the sky, as mysterious as the universe. Everyone can see it, but no one can feel it. Although this was the Great Silver City, it did not take much effort to finish searching the entire place. The results were, however, very unexpected. There was nothing. Was the Xiao family really that unscrupulous to kill off two of their own experts for the sake of the conspiracy? There was probably no need to go that far. Jun Moxie frowned. He suddenly dove down with a whoosh, and started searching underground instead. Just as he expected, there were countless secret chambers underground. Jun Moxie started searching carefully underground using the power of earth and yin-yang escape. He was forced to a halt when he reached the vast space beneath the Silver City Hall. It was impermeable even with his newly attained breakthroughs and leveled-up spiritual awareness. As if some mysterious energy was protecting that place. This mysterious energy was undoubtedly formidable and powerful. Furthermore, this was definitely not like the energy felt from humans, but rather a special and mysterious type of energy that could not be understood. Shocked, Jun Moxie avoided the place in his search but committed it to his memory. To think that there was such a strange location in Blizzard's Silver City. He would definitely have to go and see what was going on when he had the time. Just as he channeled the spiritual awareness to the left, he finally perked up. Found it. Jun Moxie cut right through the soil to the location. Wasn't this Xiao Han who was lying on the bed in this secret chamber? Jun Wu-yi was merciful enough to only strip him of his martial arts. But Jun Moxie was not going to let it go that easily. He gouged out his eyes, picked his tendons, cut off his ears, dug out his tongue, shattered his spine, and even crippled his genitals. But he did not kill him. While living in such a state was more tortuous than death. But Jun Moxie intended to let him continue living on like this. Letting him die just like that was too easy for him. Hence when he was slowly tormenting Xiao Han, he also instilled life force in him. As long as Xiao Han did not starve or get killed by someone else, he definitely would not die. And just as Jun Moxie predicted, While Xiao Xingyun was ruthless in his acts, he could not do the same to his own descendants. So Xiao Xingyun secretly took care of Xiao Han instead. Checking that there was no one else in the secret chamber, Jun Moxie appeared before Xiao Han with a whoosh. He took a deep sniff of the air and annoyance appeared on his face. There is not a single whiff of odd smell in a place like this for a crippled person. Seems like Xiao family did a pretty good job in their aftercare. Jun Moxie took 2 steps in the secret room, while Xiao Han could not see. But his senses were still very sharp. Noticing that someone was near him, a look of confusion spread across his face. Jun Moxie leaned in and whispered beside Xiao Han's ear, grinning. Xiao Han, I know you can still hear me. When I sliced your ears off, I did not burst your eardrums. So take a guess, who am I? A look of fear spread across Xiao Han's disfigured face. He shook his head aggressively, making incomprehensible noises with his tongueless mouth. Just as I expected. You still can hear. And to be able to correctly guess who am I, you're still pretty smart. Living like this feels great, doesn't it? Jun Moxie said gently, yet harsh cruelness could be detected in his tone. I came by today to add on one more dish for you because I realized that you've been living comfortably. Way too comfortably. How could this be allowed? I'm extremely disappointed. Xiao Han struggled at all his might with a fearful look on his face, pleading for mercy. Relax. I definitely won't kill you. Ha ha ha. I cannot bear for you to just die like that. And now that you're so obediently lying still, why would I use vicious methods on you? Smiling, Jun Moxie took a medicine bag out and opened it. Grabbing Xiao Han's chin, he shoved the medicine down his throat and said, This is medicine that I had prepared specially for you. There is only one in the whole of the Xian continent and no one else in this entire world other than you is worthy of using it. You should be honored, because you are unparalleled in this world now. After consuming this medicine, you will itch every day. It is an itch you will never be able to scratch and it will itch so much you will want to kill yourself. But no one will be able to detect any problem. What you did to Jun family, and all that you did to my third uncle, how could I not repay you properly? Laughing, Jun Moxie continued. Take it as I helped you achieve your great name of becoming the #1 in the world for itching. He then took out a small golden dagger and swiped 1,000 evil 10,000 poison fruit across it before pricking Xiao Han's fingers and toes with it. It was really a gentle pricking, neither the flesh or skin were damaged. I know you are extremely sharp in your senses. So you must be wondering why is it that not even your skin is hurt. Don't be too disappointed. Because soon your fingers and toes will start to rot. Bit by bit, don't worry. You won't die from it. It should take a few years before it reaches your neck. So slowly enjoy it, Xiao Han. This is the repayment of the Jun family. At this point in time, Xiao Han was already screaming in pain. The medicine had already taken effect. As he began to shiver, Jun Moxie laughed and disappeared in a flash. In the secret chamber, Xiao Han shook his body with all his might until he fell off the bed. The servant outside heard the noise and rushed in, only to see Xiao Han struggling in pain on the floor. There was nobody else. That's odd. To struggle to get off the bed when he is crippled to this extent. The servant shook his head and carried him back onto the bed. But Xiao Han was struggling and writhing around uncontrollably. He could no longer speak, so he could not tell anyone about the strange itch. And anything be detected from his body. He could only bear it as no one else could see his misery. Furthermore, the pain on his fingertips and toes was spreading, extremely painfully. But the tendons in his hands were already damaged. He could not write to convey the pain he was going through. He could only bear with this torture until the end of his life. Xiao Han's current miserable state had never existed since ancient times. And it seems like only Jun Moxie could think of such a cruel torture method. This must be retribution for his wrongdoings. Jun Moxie flew out of the room, controlling the soil with ease, quickly located where the 8th and 9th elders were hiding. Not far from Xiao Han, and in a much comfier environment. While both of these people had lost their legs, nothing else was taken from them. As a result, their Xian skills still maintained its original standard. Furthermore, the chambers they resided in were spacious and had everything provided, almost like a small house. The 2 elders were currently killing time playing chess and drinking tea in the 9th elder's chamber. They were even served by a few women. Donned in white, the 2 elders looked lively as they continued in their chess, and the smell of freshly boiled tea leaves wafted throughout the space. At such a sight, even Jun Moxie felt a little envious. This is the life immortals lead? What the feck? Living more comfortably than even me? Are you two even crippled? Jun Moxie was jealous. And with no doubt, making Master Jun jealous came with severe consequences. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 707. Hate and conflicts have their own reasons. Jun Moxie drifted in swiftly, and with a gentle flick of his finger, the 3 girls fell unconscious before noticing anything. Jun Moxie never killed women. He was a gentleman, after all. Otherwise, there would be 3 corpses on the floor instead. Jun Moxie. It's you. The 8th elder immediately recognized him. Deep resentment could be seen from his eyes. How did you get in here? The 2 elders glanced at each other, and the most negative thought sprouted in their heads. Could it be that Blizzard Silver City has already fallen to the enemy? But, didn't Elder Brother say there were hundreds of experts from 3 holy lands that were helping us handle the Jun family? How could we lose so easily? How I came in shouldn't be of importance. What is important to you guys is that I'm here to congratulate you too. You will be leaving this place to see the sunlight again. Ha ha ha. Are you surprised? Jun Moxie didn't have time to waste grinding teeth with them, so he swiftly blocked their acupuncture points. With his current abilities as a 2nd-level venerable, defeating these 2 spirit Xian experts was effortless. His opponents had no room for retaliation. He easily restrained the elders and moved on to the next part of his plan. Divine light burst forth from his eyes. Great spirit deterrence technique. This time, without any external help, using his purest spiritual energy, he instantly hypnotized the 2. Under the influence of the demonic divine light from Jun Moxie's eyes, the expression of the 2 elders slowly changed from anger to confusion, before softening to a gentle look of complete submission. The great spirit deterrence technique that Jun Moxie had used this time and the one he used back when he was at the base rank of Sky Xian had the same theory. But the effects created were of different tiers. The hypnosis this time would be the most basic, but also the purest. Tonight, I will turn Blizzard Silver City upside down. Jun Moxie let out a cruel smile, the demonic divine light in his eyes glowing brighter. Meanwhile, the argument in the Silver City Great Hall between the Han and Xiao families had reached a boiling point. Donning a sorrowful expression, Han Zhanmeng spoke. Xiao Xingyun. Since the building of Blizzard Silver City, the Han family has always abided by the teachings of our ancestors to take extra care of the Xiao family. If there is any benefit to be gained, The Xiao family will get it first and Han family will only take from the leftovers. If there is any threat, the Han family will always be the first to eradicate the threat while the Xiao family waits in comfort. There has been countless evidence for such matters. Take the recent case when you killed the 2 members of the Jun family, which triggered the insane pursuit of the Dongfang family. If not for my father breaking the rules and imploring Yunbi Chen for help to suppress the Dongfang family, did you think the combined powers of your brothers would be enough to win against the lady of the Dongfang family? The Xiao family would have been wiped out during that incident. Our ancestors have been bonded by brotherly ties for hundreds of years and have always treated each other with respect and care. But to think that when it came to your generation, not only did you plot to snatch the Lord's position, you even ruthlessly killed your own brothers. Such unacceptable actions. Even the heavens would be enraged. Xiao Xingyun. Search your conscience to see if you can still show your face to your ancestors of the Xiao family who have spilt blood and died for Silver City. Well said. Han Zhanmeng. Since you've spoken, it is my turn to ask you instead. The teachings of our ancestors still hang on the wall, even today. You also said that my ancestors sacrificed their lives for Silver City, but how did you treat us? To think that you even have the cheek to bring this up. Who exactly is the one whose words do not match their actions? Xiao Xingyun's face was filled with anguish and anger, to the point that his beard was trembling. Pointing a finger, he continued, Xiao Han and Yan Yao, who were childhood sweethearts, when we decided on their marriage, did anyone have any objections? It was supposed to be a wonderful affair after they wed when they were of age, spending the rest of their lives together. But you, Han Zhanmeng, have failed in discipling your daughter. After your daughter left the mountains, she immediately fell for someone else and said that she would not marry anyone else. The marriage arrangement was still valid, but she even pulled such a stunt, completely insulting the Xiao family. He sighed and continued, how can we let it go so easily after suffering such a great insult? I'm sure that if it's any other family, they would not let it go so easily either. But not only did you not reprimand your daughter's misdoings, and even prevent us from getting our revenge, you forced us to swallow our grievances like that. The Xiao family is also one of the influential families. We have our pride and dignity too. Did you consider that? No. You didn't bother about our reputation and only sided with your daughter. What sort of logic is that? To not be allowed to seek revenge when his own wife was stolen. Which man on this earth would be able to swallow this humiliation? With bloodshot eyes, Han Zhanmeng spat. Xiao Xingyun, you don't have to twist the facts here. The facts were set clear from the start. And indeed the marriage was decided when Yan Yao was young. But it was reiterated that as long as they had feelings for each other after they grew up, the wedding would commence. But if they didn't, there was room for discussion. The elders of both families were present to witness this. I believe everyone still remembers this. And I'm sure everyone is aware of how Xiao Han is as a person after he grew up, so I will not elaborate on this. Only Yan Yao had been against his actions from beginning to end. And even before they left the mountain for their training, she begged repeatedly for the marriage arrangement to be called off. And there was even an instance where she knelt before you for help. Did you forget about that incident? I recall you saying that marriage is a great affair that determines the rest of their lives. And if they really could not get along, there was no need to force them to go through with it. You were the one that said this. Did you possibly forget? With all those prior statements, while the wedding arrangement existed, it was purely only in name. But who in the entire Blizzard Silver City was unaware of this truth? How did we tarnish the Xiao family's name? Even when Yan Yao left the mountain and met the third master Jun Wu Yi, and they developed feelings for each other, Yan Hao never revealed her real identity. She did this to protect the image of your Xiao family. All she wanted was to seek our approval after returning to officially call off the marriage arrangement, and then reveal her real identity to Jun Yi so our three families can live together in harmony. Both of us learned of this matter at the same time back then when Yan Yao returned. Were you going to pretend that you were muddle-headed and cannot remember? What purpose do you have in twisting the facts and using it as reason for your acts? It was obvious that Jun Yi had no idea of the situation and everyone else in the Jun family was innocent. But the Xiao family went down with such great fanfare to capture Yan Yao and even threaten the Jun family. As the daughter of the Lord of Silver City, to be forcefully escorted back. I did not say anything back then only because I felt apologetic to Xiao family. But everyone knows that it made no sense because we of the Han family had request to call off the marriage first. But you didn't stop there and even colluded with rogues to murder the White Commander, Jun Hui, and his brothers. To even purposely not kill Jun Yi but leave him crippled waist down. How wrong was it for the Jun family? They had no clue of Yan Yao's real identity from start till end, but still had to suffer such vicious blows. Even Jun Mou and Jun Mo Cho died without knowing why they had been killed. Had the Dongfang family not intervened, would the Xiao family not feel as if their actions were too much? Then you blew this matter up after returning to Silver City to force Yan Yao to marry Xiao Han immediately, threatening her with the Jun family to make her cut herself to the point she was almost dying and leaving her to live alone in Sword Peak. It has been 10 years since then. Why is it that after all this happened, you conveniently forgot about everything you said before? Overbearing and forceful in every way. The Han family did not pursue this matter as we stayed true to our ancestors' teachings. When you requested the marriage arrangement between Xiao Feng Wu and Menger, I agreed to it without creating any difficulties despite not being in support of the idea. It was purely because I thought it would compensate for the failed marriage arrangement. You can even say that it was an act of benevolence. Xiao Xingyun. Recall carefully the acts by Xiao family for the past 10 years. Have you ever respected the Han family as masters? On the entire hand, in the past 100 of years, was there even a day where we treated the Xiao family as servants? I can't help but scorn at the words you have spoken. Xiao Xingyun laughed coldly. Indeed, most of what you said was the truth. I did make those statements and also admit that the arrangement could be called off. But fact is that your daughter, who knew no self-respect, got together with someone else before the wedding was officially called off. I've always been a reasonable person. Had the marriage been properly called off, you would have been able to marry your daughter to whoever you wanted. That would have been your problem, not the Xiao family's. Furthermore, I also watched Yan Yao grow up and treated her like my own daughter. Why wouldn't I wish to see her happy? Even if she married into another family after the marriage was called off, I wouldn't have made things difficult for her. And whoever did would have faced my wrath. Can you even believe what you are saying? Han Zhanmeng felt like vomiting. It was so rare for someone to be this shameless. You drove your own daughter to a dead end. And you dare say you treat her as one of your own? To think that he had the cheek to say that. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 708. What a way to uphold justice. Xiao Xingyun couldn't be bothered with Han Zhanmeng and continued. This is where the problem lies. When the incident happened, Yan Yao did not call off the wedding officially because she could not bear to part with the title of daughter-in-law of the Xiao family. Were you going to deny this fact? The entire Blizzard Silver City knew that the marriage might be cancelled. But note, it was merely a possibility. Everyone knew the arrangement still stood. With this valid arrangement, She selfishly got involved with another man. Shameless and promiscuous. Making a cuckold out of Xiao Han. Marring our reputation. This is an undeniable fact. Han Zhanmeng. Do you have any concerns with what I said? Xiao Xingyun. You're spouting nonsense. Xue Shuangqing trembled with anger. 10 years ago, you already made noise with regards to this. And now, you are still bringing this up. Even if it was an agreement, it was merely a verbal one. Yan Yao was never married into your family and remained pure from start till end. How did we tarnish your reputation? Is the Xiao family even worthy of it? What do you think you are? Ha 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 ha. Well said. Now you have finally spoken from your heart. For the sake of Silver City, generations of the Xiao family have always served and worked our hearts out with loyalty. To think that you would question us on what we consider ourselves to be. To say that we were unworthy. Ha ha ha. Ancestors, did you hear that clearly? This is how the descendants of the Han family oppress us. Even for a lowly wife to scold the head of the Xiao family. Such great humiliation will not be tolerated. From today onward, the Xiao family will have nothing to do with the Han family. Xiao Xingyun laughed cruelly and suddenly turned to face the painting of the ancestors of Blizzard Silver City. First ancestor Xing Chen. You lost your life protecting your sworn brother back then. But did you think that hundreds of years later, your own descendants would be humiliated and oppressed like this? If you are watching from above, I wonder how sad you feel. If you'd regret what you did back then. Tears streamed down Xiao Xingyun's face as he mourned bitterly. As long as the Silver Blizzard City remains, the Xiao family's descendants will never perish. Master Han, you made this blood oath before the heroes of the world. But to think that today, your descendants are trying to wipe the Xiao family out. If you are watching, open your eyes and see how pitiful we have become. Xiao Xingyun. Why you are utterly shameless. Han Zhanmeng was vibrating with anger. If he could, he would strangle Xiao Xingyun to death this instant. After all these years in Blizzard Silver City, he never knew that this elder was such a great actor. All this nonsense spouted was enough to make someone's lungs explode from anger. To think that the descendants of the Xiao family are so ill-fated. Xiao Xingyun continued to cry sorrowfully. Suddenly, he gritted his teeth and said, "Finally, there's somewhere to seek justice. The fair and just 3 holy lands have always helped people. Today, the esteemed elders of 3 holy lands have graced us with their presence. It is a great chance to seek justice for the oppression the Xiao family have suffered. Return peace to Blizzard Silver City. There must be someone who is a fair judge of all these actions." After making this convincing speech, he turned around and looked at Imo Xiao Yao as he bowed deeply. Joy and grief appeared on his face, like a tenant who had been oppressed for thousands of years and was finally freed. "Elder Mo, you are here to witness everything today. The Xiao family is faced with disaster of our clan being wiped out with little chance of survival. Please seek justice for us. Let the world know that justice exists. Loyalty is not to be insulted. Please, uphold justice for us." Xiao Xingyun bowed deeply again without raising his head. Behind him, the elders of the Xiao family stumbled their way forward and knelt to the ground, crying, "Great 3 holy lands, please investigate and seek justice for us." The synchronization in their actions and speech was incredible, almost as if it were rehearsed beforehand. Han Zhanmeng was so overwhelmed by anger that he could not speak. Xiao Xingyun had twisted the facts so blatantly, literally speaking without any conscience. Despite his convincing and moving performance and acting, not a single sentence was truthful. To be able to learn such an ability after living for so long. Truly, he was a great talent. An incredible talent. Had Xiao Xingyun practiced with such rigor in his martial arts, even becoming a saint would not have been impossible for him. One could truly become unparalleled in the world by being shameless. Instantly, noises broke out across the hall. The elders from the Han family were appalled by his shamelessness. Despite everyone being aware of the truth, Xiao Xingyun had managed to twist lies into truth. It was the Xiao family who had oppressed and harmed others, but he made himself the victim. Xiao Xingyun, do you have shame? You are destroying the reputation of the Xiao family's ancestors. Xiao Xingyun. To think you could be this shameless when you are this old. Everyone knows how the Xiao family has been in Blizzard Silver City. How do you have the cheek to spout such nonsense? Xiao Xingyun. You being shameless was enough. But to think that the entire Xiao family is just as shameless as you. To even carry out such a shameless act. I must have been blind for not realizing how despicable you were. Had the experts of 3 holy lands not be present, the hall would have gone through a bloodbath. The Venerable of Life and Death from the Supreme Golden City let out a solemn look and coughed, and his vigil eyes scanned the entire hall. Everyone was instantly silenced by his aura. I am an outsider in the argument between the Han family and the Xiao family, and O should not interfere. However, after observing this whole time, I do understand a little of the situation. Not sure if Han Zhanmeng and Xiao Xingyun would be willing to listen my opinion regarding the justice in this matter. Wei Kong-kun spoke slowly. Venerable Wei, do speak. We will definitely listen and obey your words. Xiao Xingyun bowed respectfully and stayed in that position. Han Zhanmeng pondered for a moment and said, Venerable Wei, do feel to speak if you have any suggestions regarding the current situation. I happen to seek your view on what to do. While Han Zhanmeng made it sound pretty, everyone could tell that he had left room for discussion. Anyone could tell the difference between heeding advice obediently and seeking suggestions. Wei Kong-kun spoke with a smile. For hundreds of years, the 2 families have been friends, and when facing the imminent threat, wasting time in commotions over such trivial marriage matters would only bring loss. The influence and power of Blizzard Silver City is not achieved by merely the powers of either the Han family nor Xiao family alone. If I put it this way, do any of you have any issues? Xiao Xingyun replied respectfully. Venerable Wei speaks with such enlightenment. I am ashamed. Han Zhanmeng felt that something was off. What intentions do you have? Speaking like this? What does the threat have to do with the Han family? What imminent threat to the city? When the Jun family attacks, their target would only be the Xiao family. What do you mean by wasting time in a commotion over such trivial marriage matters, when there was such a huge discrepancy? However, with Venerable Wei Kong-kun's status, Han Zhanmeng wouldn't dare accidentally offend him. Hence he replied unwillingly. Venerable Wei Kong-kun is correct. I'll continue to speak if that's the case, Wei Kong-kun said. Since the building of Blizzard Silver City, Han family and Xiao family have contributed and sacrificed greatly. Or you can say, Blizzard Silver City belongs to Xiao family and Han family. And there is no difference. Am I right to say this? Xiao Xingyun nodded aggressively in agreement. The more Han Zhanmeng listened, the more odd it sounded. He frowned. What? Blizzard Silver City belongs to Xiao family and Han family. Blizzard Silver City had always belonged to Han family. This way of speaking was completely diluting and mixing the truth. Since the 2 families are one, then it makes no difference if the Han family or Xiao family is the master. If this is the case, since it is the cause of this disagreement. Isn't it easy to resolve? Since the Han family has been masters for hundreds of years, why not give it temporarily to the Xiao family? After all, it does not matter which family it is. It is still Blizzard's Silver City. For the sake of the greater good, I'd advise Master Han to give in temporarily. You mean, to ask me to hand the Lord's position to the Xiao family? Han Zhanmeng questioned in shock. To think that the fair and just 3 holy lands would utter such bullshit. Who are you even? A matter as big as changing dynasties would be as simple as a single sentence. What's happening? Your one sentence and everyone in Blizzard's Silver City will adopt Xiao as their surname? For generations, the countries and territories of emperors were claimed by their generals. By your logic, a mere discussion can put a general in a position of supreme power? Complete bullshit. Incredibly brainless. And someone like this is a commander of 3 holy lands? That's right. I made this suggestion out of goodwill. Both your families have been torn apart by who sits in the position of the Lord. To ignore the teachings of your ancestors and cut off the hundreds of years of friendship and brotherhood for this? Wei Kong-kun sighed. By letting the Xiao family take the Lord's position today is a great way to prove the mutual respect your families have for each other. For the sake of this deep bond and brotherly ties of hundreds of years. Wealth and riches are superficial. What harm is there in letting it go? Furthermore, this will be a great affair that will be spoken about greatly by the people of this world. Brother Wei speaks sensibly. When the Han family moved into Blizzard's Silver City, the vow became the ancestral teachings for the generations without change over the past 100 years. This vow was the model example for the rest of the world. Mo Xiao Yao exclaimed. Today, the Xiao family has become the lord of the city, naturally also having to make an oath to protect the interests of the Han family forever. Working in sync, with just these few sentences, they forcefully changed the lord of the city. That's right. Before the experts of the 3 holy lands, I, Xiao Xingyun, swear that from today on, the Xiao family will never abandon the Han family. As long as the Silver City still stands, the lineage of the Han family will never break. Through generations, we will be brothers, and this oath is unbreakable regardless of life or death. Xiao Xingyun's excited and joyous expression could not be hidden any longer. He had great control, but seeing that his lifelong goal was about to be achieved, he could no longer hold it in. He had also wanted to make an oath, but he was too overwhelmed to think of any fancy way to say it, so he just blurted out the ancestral oath of the Han family after changing one word. Furthermore, we have had countless commotions over the trivial matters of our children in recent years, which was truly inappropriate. I'm ashamed to my ancestors to the care of the previous generations of Han family. I sincerely ask for forgiveness and assure that such problems will never happen again. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 709. We're indeed rebelling. So what? Good. City Lord Xiao is indeed a hero of a generation. To agree so straightforwardly, your sincerity is obvious. The oath you made was heartfelt, and your grace was righteous. As expected of a truly benevolent and large-hearted man. Jia Qingyun clapped his hands and said with a smile. Today, this old man got to witness such a legendary occasion. It's truly a blessing. Shut up. A Han family elder could endure no longer and finally snapped. He no longer cared about who was in front of him. The eyes of the entire Han family had all turned red, and everyone could see that the 3 holy lands was obviously in cahoots with the Xiao family, helping them snatch the position of the head of the Silver City. Everyone present had lived for a long time. How could they still not understand that the people from the three Holy Lands had come simply to deal with the Jun family and Tianfa? But the Han family's attitude was clearly biased toward the Jun family. Naturally, the three Holy Lands would not allow them to be in charge, even if they had to disregard their reputation. They still made such a move to directly change the Han family's authority over to the Xiao family. Such a matter was truly unprecedented. A shameless matter like this was actually described to be such a righteous affair. In that moment, the elders of the Han family nearly died of anger on the spot. "You told this old man to shut my mouth?" Wei Kong-kun smiled dangerously and looked at that Han family elder. "You truly want this old man to shut my mouth? Kiki, you'd better not regret it." "Venerable Wei, please calm your wrath. This one has some words to say." Han Zhanmeng stood up and said. "What? You have some words to say? What words?" Wei Kong-kun narrowed his eyes and drawled slowly. "Could it be that you disagree with this old man?" A crushing pressure slowly descended onto the hall. The three Holy Lands are the leaders of the martial world. That has been the case since tens of thousands of years. This Han naturally has great respect for the three Holy Lands. However, although the three Holy Lands are the leaders of the martial world, they're not citizens of Blizzard Silver City. Today's matter is an internal matter of my Blizzard Silver City. This humble city lord is of the opinion that even if the Holy Lands are the controllers of this world, they should not be able to interfere in this matter. Han Zhanmeng's eyes were blazing with anger, but he forcefully controlled his emotions. His voice was heavy, but he gritted his teeth and continued. "Ever since Blizzard Silver City was built, we've established our own independence. We've never submitted to any powers, even the three Holy Lands. Although our Blizzard Silver City respects the three Holy Lands greatly, we're not subordinate to them. In addition, the position of Blizzard Silver City's City Lord is also not something that can be determined by the forceful intervention of any third parties. This matter, I hope that Senior Wei will be magnanimous to forgive and tolerate our rudeness. We also hope for your understanding." Han Zhanmeng was neither servile nor overbearing. His eyes were tinged with some indignation, but he still refused to give way. He clearly knew that the opposite party was an expert who surpassed him greatly. Although his own cultivation was not low, and he could be considered as an expert of his generation as well, the other party could still squeeze him to death with a single finger. He clearly knew all this, but he still said those words without so much as blinking. In other words, "I've said so many things and advised so painstakingly, but it's no different to you than if I'd simply farted before you?" Wei Kong-kun's face darkened, and he snorted coldly. "Han Zhanmeng, is that what you're trying to say?" "I dare not. I dare not. A fart would at least have some stench, or some noises. As the saying goes, smelly farts are silent, while noisy farts are not smelly." But Senior Wei's words are not only not smelly, there aren't even any ripples. In essence, it's not even comparable to a fart. These words were not spoken by Han Zhanmeng, but from someone outside. The moment these words came out, everyone was shocked to the core. Who would actually have the guts to taunt a venerable expert of the three Holy Lands like that? That person's courage was not little awe. To think that there was a living being in this Silver City who had such a great amount of guts. Which bastard is it? Roll out here for this old man. Wei Kong-kun's eyes widened with rage as he turned around and stared at the entrance. The pretentious look of benevolence that he'd been assuming disappeared completely. A peak-level expert like him had actually been scolded by some ant when he entered their territory. And he'd been scolded so dreadfully. If this could be endured, what could not? I'll roll out here this instance. You think I'm scared of you? I've never done anything against my conscience, so there's nothing to fear. The huge doors of the hall slammed open, and two white-haired old men were revealed, their faces filled with righteous indignation. They appeared learned and calm, but their words were vulgar and jarring to the ears. They each sat in a wheelchair, pushed by two servants. 8th. 9th. Xiao Xingyun's bent back straightened in an instant as he looked at the two old men in shock. After shouting out their names, he completely forgot what he should say. This old fox had actually been shocked speechless. Hadn't these two fellows been hidden away by them? How did they appear here now? What kind of timing is this? What are the two of you coming out here for? Eldest brother. We two brothers have come. The eighth elder smiled coolly and said. From the look on his face, there didn't seem to be anything strange about him. Beside him, the ninth elder also looked amicable as of old. These two's minds had completely been controlled by Jun Moxie. But on the surface, it was impossible to tell that something was wrong with these two elders. At this time, they finally stepped onto the stage. Eighth elder, ninth elder? You've returned? Then, what about Meng, and the rest? Xue Shuangqing stood up anxiously and asked. She hadn't seen her daughter for so long, so her insides had already turned green with worry. The two of us came back first, but the little princess and the rest aren't back yet. The ninth elder answered curtly. They even seemed somewhat refined and courteous. Eighth elder, ninth elder, your legs? Han Zhanmeng looked at them with shock. What happened? How did this happen? This matter has become serious now. The eighth elder sighed heavily. Then, he turned his eyes and looked straight at Xiao Xingyun, hollering, Eldest brother, why are you behaving like this to these outsiders? Our Xiao family has vowed to never lower our heads, and never bend our backs. This is the same regardless of who it is. But why are you bowing so lowly today? Dang it! Are you still not getting up? These words were actually spoken with great rage. The eighth elder, who had always been extremely obsequious to Xiao Xingyun, had suddenly changed into a completely different person. Not only had he rebuked a venerable expert from the three holy lands, he was even shouting at Xiao Xingyun. This shout had caused all who knew him in the Silver City to open their mouths wide with shock. Had this fellow gone crazy? Eighth brother, what nonsense are you speaking? These are the seniors of the three holy lands. Toward these seniors, how could we not treat them with respect? Xiao Xingyun's face turned pale as he berated anxiously. Although he was scolding, his words were filled with warning. Those were not people we can afford to offend. Hurry up and ask for forgiveness. Wei Kong Kun's eyes were already blazing with killing intent. He looked at the eighth elder and asked with gritted teeth, one word at a time, just now, were you the one scolding this old man? Senior Wei, please appease your anger. Xiao Xingyun hurriedly apologized with a smiling face. Then, he turned around and scolded. What's wrong with you two? I haven't seen you for a few days, and you've already become so bold. Hurry up and seek Senior Wei's forgiveness. Eldest brother, for this matter, this little brother cannot agree with you. The ninth elder said huffily. Eldest brother, our Xiao family had always done things in an above-board manner. We never needed to hide or shirk from anything. Why do we need to go to such extent? What do you mean with those words? Han Zhanmeng and Xiao Xingyun both asked at the same time. In that moment, these two old enemies had the same expressions on their faces, doubt and disbelief. Eldest brother. Since we have the heart to rebel, we should do it forthrightly. Indeed. We couldn't bear the sight of the Han family since a long time ago. So what? The ninth elder stuck out his neck and declared in a heroic voice. Our Xiao family simply wants the seat of city lord. What the feck can anyone do about it? We've been planning for this in secret for more than 40 years. But what of it? You think that we're afraid of saying it out? With the current strength of our Xiao family, do we need to be afraid that the heirless Han family can change the situation? This old man is truly baffled. Are we afraid that they can flip over the skies and change the situation? This ninth elder's words were like a crazed person. His words were more coarse than the uncouth men in the streets, and expletives flew out of his mouth continuously. What nonsense are you spouting? Shut your mouth this instant. Xiao Xingyun roared. At this point, he was already somewhat at a loss of what to do. He'd obtained the support of the three holy lands with great difficulty, and taking advantage of the fact that the Jun family was at their gates, he would finally seize the position of city lord. He was on the very verge of success. The moment this matter was over, he would be the new city lord of Blizzard Silver City. But who would have imagined that these two idiots would suddenly appear at the most critical moment, and directly start spouting a bunch of nonsense? All his plans had been completely exposed. More importantly, these two happened to be the two most trusted aides of his. There was truly not much that they didn't know. Eldest brother, how am I spouting nonsense? Could it be that you don't remember the grand matter that we discussed together at the beginning? That was a matter that concerned our Xiao family for generations and ages to come. I would never forget it. The ninth elder widened his eyes and continued loudly. Over 40 years ago, you called all of us brothers together and said that while our Xiao family has been in the Silver City for so many years, even if we didn't have any meritorious contributions, we've all given our share of hard work. Why should the Han family be the masters, while we take on the role of stewards? Even if our authority and benefits were larger, what meaning was there in that? It was our ancestor who established the Silver City back then. Why should the Han family be in charge? We must take back the Silver City. Let the Han family and those other people go to hell. Eldest brother. Those were your exact words. Xiao Xingyun nearly fainted from anger, and his lips and eyes twitches uncontrollably. Anger and anxiousness intermixed. He hurriedly shouted, "Nonsense! When have I ever said those kind of words?" Everyone in the hall turned their gazes and looked questioningly at him together. Eldest brother, what's the matter with you? A true man has the courage to take responsibility for his actions. So what if it's the Silver City? What's the Han family worth? A bunch of soft eggs. What are we afraid of them for? We'll just feck them all. The ninth elder leaned forward in his wheelchair, and his expression turning more unbearably uncouth. That year, the reason the two elders Xiao Yu and Chun Feng died on the west frontier, wasn't it done by this little brother and you personally? They were the biggest tumors in our hearts back then, weren't they? Since we've already done the deed, is there still any reasons to be afraid? The reason the Han family's numbers are dwindling the past few years, wasn't that the result of our handiwork as well? Just thinking back to the disbelieving expressions of those two undying old fools back then still makes this little brother laugh. How delightful. Haha. Xiao Xingyun stared at him dumbly, his mouth gaping widely and his eyes unblinking. Looking at these two brothers of his that seemed quite sober, he suddenly felt his head swoon. He stumbled slightly and brought a shaky hand to his forehead. In that moment, he felt as if he were in a dream. Exactly. Eldest brother. This is the same as that time in the grasslands. We used poison to harm the two Han family elders, Ning Shi and Qing Chen. Back then, you were the one who laid down the plans and you also executed it personally. Pang! Pang! Two swift blades onto the two's heads. How enjoyable, ah, ah, ah. We've indeed done all that. But so what? Could it be that the Han family is still capable of eating us? Aren't they still kept in the dark? They've been deceived completely. The eighth elder reminisced with relish as he smacked his lips and slapped his legless stumps. His roars were so loud that the entire hall buzzed and trembled. Xiao Xingyun only felt the world spin, and his body tottered unsteadily. Raising his head he roared, "You two bastards! Just what nonsense are you spouting? Have you been possessed by a devil in your sleep? Ah! You two wretched scoundrels! Have your brains turned to mush? You son of a beach! Eldest brother, how could you say such things? How are we scoundrels? Eldest brother, we're your left and right hand, ah! Besides, our parents aren't called Wang Ba, so how could we be bastard?" Eighth elder continued in a wronged manner. "Eldest brother, we're really not bastards. Our father is surnamed Xiao, not Wang. Have you forgotten?" Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 710. This is a real peak-level sword. The ninth elder's brows shot up as he asserted eloquently, "There's also this time, when the six of us second, fifth, eighth, third, sixth and ninth took Xiao Han, Mu Shuetong, and that little beach to Tian Nan. Although second brother and sixth brother tragically lost their lives and the legs of us two were cut off, we still managed to come back safely. We're men. Does it matter that our legs are broken? As long as the leg in the middle is not cut off, we're not crippled. Fecking hell. What does it matter that our legs were severed? Furthermore, not only did we return safely, eldest brother even personally took action, killing the two old idiots third and fifth. I really have to hand it to you, eldest brother. Eldest brother is truly far-sighted, planting spies inside the seven swords even as far back as 30 years ago. Finally, everything came to fruition in one swoop, completely annihilating those annoying bastards. How enjoyable! It's a pity that Mu Shuetong managed to escape along with that little beach." The eighth elder's face grew savage as he continued. "It's truly regretful that they managed to escape, otherwise. I reckon that eldest brother might have some interest in that little beach's tender skin, Kikik. Kiyu. Kiyu." Han Zhanmeng and Xiao Xingyun both spat out a mouthful of blood each. The former was wrecked with grief and anger, and the latter was driven mad from rage. After so many words, Han Zhanmeng finally understood. He finally understood everything. On the other hand, Xiao Xingyun had utterly fallen into despair. On top of that, he felt completely helpless. He was so angry that smoke was nearly spouting from his 7 apertures. This old man was already 100 years old. How long had it been since he'd participated in matters between men and women? Although it was also because he'd been injured and had no choice in the matter. There was no need to stain his reputation like that. What exactly is going on? Why were his own brothers selling him out like that? They sold him out so utterly and righteously as well? Xiao Xingyun, you're good. Truly amazing, ah. Ha ha ha. Han Zhanmeng laughed bitterly as he looked fiercely at Xiao Xingyun, 40 years. Ha! You've actually plotted so painstakingly for 40 years. Silver City, the central strength of the Silver City, ah. Thereafter, he raised his head and roared bitterly to the heavens. A line of blood burst out from his throat, and his long black hair burst out of his hair crown, flowing fiercely behind his head without the presence of any wind. His eyes full of tears, he gritted his teeth and laughed maniacally. Elder Xiao Yu, Elder Chun Feng, Elder Ning Shi, Elder Qing Chen. Third Elder, Fifth Elder. 7 swords. These are all the elites of the Silver City. Xiao Xingyun. Why you? Are you still a human? You deserve death. Even 10,000 deaths are too little to repay your crimes. The last sentence was spat out like a roar. Han City Lord gathered the entirety of his Xian Qi and his voice blasted out like thunder from the heavens. It was so mighty that all the ice on the roof of the hall were shattered. The entire great hall even shook a few times. Xiao Xingyun took multiple steps backward in shock, completely at a loss of what to do. His eyes were filled with perplexion and alarm. Such an anomaly had far exceeded his calculations. Furthermore, this strange event had happened at the time when he was at his proudest. Being struck down from heaven into hell, he still hadn't had the time to react. Han Zhanmeng stepped forward aggressively, his 2 eyes red with blood. Gritting his teeth forcefully, he growled, Xiao Xingyun, what else do you have to say for yourself? These things were confessed from the mouths of your own blood-related brothers. Can you still deny them? I truly didn't think that you could be such a despicable, human-faced beast. Han Zhanmeng, don't be so emotional. That's just their one-sided story. They're completely baseless fabrications. Xiao Xingyun looked at his 2 brothers hatefully. This old man has always done things in a clear and above-board manner. I've never went against my conscience. How could I have done such despicable things? Han Zhanmeng, you're truly skilled, to think that you've even managed to buy over this old man's younger brothers? I really have to admire your methods, to go to such extent and even use such despicable measures. Are you still able to face the heavens and your ancestors? To think that you're actually capable of employing such a lowly scheme. 8th. 9th. We're blood brothers. Are you really going to malign your eldest brother like that for the sake of an outsider? Will you be able to face our deceased father and mother after this? Are you capable of facing our Xiao family's ancestors? Have you forgotten the many years of our brotherly sentiments? The 2 of you have truly let me down. My heart aches terribly. Can you 2 not speak with conscience? Xiao Xingyun truly had not let down his title as the ancestor of shamelessness. His face had not even resumed its color, and he already began to make the best and most effective counterattack. Only, his manner of saying it was somewhat weak. This time, he did not have the imposing bearing of a bully anymore. Everyone here was an experienced expert of the martial world. How could they not see if one's words were true or not? However, despicable people were indeed adept at despicable methods. If at this time, as long as the 8th elder and the 9th elder once again changed their words and pointed their fingers at the Han family, saying that it was Han Zhanmeng who lured them with benefits to say those words, the situation would instantly change once again. Eldest brother, what words are those? When have the 2 of us betrayed you? How are we not speaking with our conscience? How can you say such a thing? The 9th elder's neck grew red as he fumed. Back then, you asked everyone to swear a blood oath and leave a tattoo on our bodies, swearing to snatch over the controlling rights of the Silver City even if we were to die in the endeavor. All of us followed your instructions and left our fingerprints and swore the blood oath. That parchment with all of our fingerprints was left to me to safekeep. Isn't the first name on that list yours, eldest brother? Could it be that this thing could still be faked? I simply don't understand. Things have already proceeded to such a state, and everything has already been revealed. What are you still worried about? We currently control over 60% of the human resource. Factions and all kinds of traps had already been laid out. Han Zhanmeng, what are you shouting at my eldest brother for? Do you think that you still have the strength to turn the situation around? Our Xiao family indeed covets your seat. Even if we have to kill the entire Han family, just as the blood oath demands, you can just sit still and wait for your death. As soon as he finished his words, the ninth elder pulled out a white cloth from his robes with a schwa sound. He flourished it grandly in the air. The parchment was filled with large numbers of red dots, all turned dark from the blood having dried. Xiao Xingyun's was right at the very top of it. Xiao Xingyun's rage billowed to the heavens, and he no longer continued to deny. He rushed forward and snatched the piece of white parchment away and crumbled it into a ball in his palms. His entire face was red with anger, and in that moment, rage surged in his heart and he raised his hand. With a powerful hu sound, his palms slapped toward his own brother's head with incredible momentum. This palm looked exceedingly frightening and carried the roaring sound of wind and thunder. It was as quick as lightning and extremely swift. Although Xiao Xingyun was incredibly enraged, he did not intend to consign his blood brother to death. Although this palm strike looked ferocious, it should not have been much of a threat for the ninth elder with his spirit Xian 4th level cultivation. He could definitely block it. In fact, as long as he moved his wheelchair a little, he would be able to avoid the palm with ease. But the result was far out of Xiao Xingyun's expectations. It had even exceeded the expectations of everyone else in the crowd. Because everyone could tell that Xiao Xingyun's attack completely did not carry any killing intent. Xiao Xingyun was completely stunned by the scene before his eyes. When the deadly slap came down, the ninth elder did not grow anxious and simply looked at the palm in an expectant manner. He actually did not block, nor move to avoid the palm. He simply sat there naturally and calmly, as if he was a martyr waiting for his death. With a powerful paw sound, his brains were slapped into mush, and red and white liquid spilled all over the ground. The ninth elder's fine big head instantly transformed into the like of a ripe orange. His body slid down lifelessly from his wheelchair and flopped onto the ground. Xiao Xingyun froze on the spot. Han Zhanmeng froze on the spot. The experts of the Han family and the Xiao Xingyun were all frozen on the spot. Even Mo Xiao Yao, the wandering venerable, and the other venerable masters froze with shock. When Han Zhanmeng discovered that the third elder and the rest were dead, he felt a wave of grief in his heart. But when he found out that his beloved daughter and Mu Shuetong were fine, he felt a sense of relief in his heart. When he saw the eighth elder and the ninth elder jumping out for some strange reason to oppose Xiao Xingyun, he felt even more glad. Although he didn't know why this was happening, he still felt extremely refreshed. Stand quietly by the side and watch the brothers tear at each other's throats. Everyone had the same thought, and when they saw the ninth elder standing up to Xiao Xingyun, they all felt that he would definitely have some skills up his sleeves. At the very least, he wouldn't be slapped to death in one strike, right? But it was exactly this extremely unbelievable thing that unfolded before everyone's eyes. The ninth elder was like a mud man, breaking apart with a single swipe. No, it was more like falling apart with a single touch. Such a result had caused everyone to gasp with shock. Ninth. Xiao Xingyun exclaimed aloud as he took 2 steps backwards. His eyes were wide open as he stared unblinkingly at his hands. At this moment, his palm had been stained with red and white. This was his younger brother's blood and brain fluid. They were brothers born of the same mother. They've lived together relying on each other for around 90 years already. But today, his younger brother had died by his hands. Xiao Xingyun's face had turned the color of deathly gray. His eyes were unfocused. And his body shook, as if he couldn't believe this fact. Xiao Xingyun. Have you gone mad? You actually killed Ninth. Wasn't he only speaking the truth? You actually struck so heavily. You say that we're lying? Even if the white parchment can be faked, can the tattoos on our bodies be faked? Just for speaking a sentence of truth, you dealt a lethal blow? The eighth elder roared crazily and gripping the sides of his wheelchair tightly. He leaped off and fell onto the ground. I don't want to live as well. This old man will fight it out with you. I finally understand now. You saw that the two of us were no longer useful now that we're crippled. So you wanted to silence your own brothers. Since you've killed ninth brother, you can kill me as well. Kill me ah. Kill me ah. Xiao Xingyun. If you don't kill me today, you're a bastard. Seeing the eighth elder crawling madly toward him like a lame tiger, the panicky and anxious Xiao Xingyun, who was still in the midst of grief, hurriedly dodged. In his state of confusion, he flailed out his arms. But somehow, that random action managed to bump against the eighth elder's arm. In that instant, an extremely strange incident happened. The raging Xian Qi on the eighth elder's arm suddenly disappeared without a trace. What was the force that Xiao Xingyun used in that random action? It was most likely not even 5% of his Xian Qi. But such an insignificant action actually created a loud paw sound as it broke the eighth elder's arm. Following that, a series of crackling sounds rang out as the entire arm shattered from the jolt. Then, with a pu-chi sound, the broken arm smashed onto the top of his head, shattering his skull. The eighth elder flew through the air and his body emitted a groan-like sigh as it fell and landed heavily on the ground, where it twitched for a moment and completely stopped moving. Xiao Xingyun howled wretchedly, as he stared at his arms with disbelief. Watching the blood dripping down his hands, he had completely turned as dumb as a wooden chicken. This old man had finally paid the price for his ambitions and his despicable actions. And this price was so very heavy. It was so heavy that nobody on this world could bear it, killing his own two brothers whom he had lived with all his life. Furthermore, he'd killed them in the most cruel fashion, a palm strike to the head. Both events had taken place in a short time. All of a sudden, the originally stern atmosphere of the great hall was filled with the thick stench of blood. Everyone on the scene looked at Xiao Xingyun with shock. Nobody had imagined that this person would be cold-hearted to such an extent that he would kill his own brothers on a whim. All the people gathered in the hall were experienced old experts. One could say that they'd seen plenty of evil people. They'd seen even the most audacious criminals. However, a person like Xiao Xingyun, whose temperament was so cold, and whose heart was so poisonous, was truly something they'd never seen, nor heard of before. Xiao Xingyun raised his head shakily and saw the contemptuous gazes of the crowd. His hands shook heavily as he muttered, "I did not kill them. It wasn't me. 8th. 9th. Stand up please. Hurry up and stand up ah." Elder brother did not use any strength ah. What are you still pretending for? They're already dead. You killed them yourself. What are the point of your act? Who do you want to show? Still trying to display your deep brotherly love? Hey! A Han family elder spat scornfully. I've really never seen a person like you before. After killing your own brothers with your hands, you still have the face to cry. Didn't use any strength? It's a good thing that you didn't use your strength. Otherwise, wouldn't everyone in this hall be slapped to death by you? Why don't you try to fool the ghosts? Not mentioning the Han family who were disgusted to the extreme. Even the Xiao family's people all felt their hearts turn cold. The 8th elder, 9th elder, and the deceased Xiao Buyu were all Xiao Xingyun's blood-related brothers, his intimate kin. Otherwise, how would that blood oath proof be left to the 9th elder to safekeep? But Xiao Xingyun actually had the heart to kill even these two, with a single slap to each. What then of other people? Xiao Xingyun did not seem to have heard anything at all. He only held the bodies of his two brothers tightly and shook them. His old face was filled with tears and loss. If his two younger brothers had died by the hands of others, although he would also be incredibly sorrowful and angry, it would not be to such an extent. But both his dear brothers had died by his own two hands. And he hadn't intended to kill them. A reality as heavy as this caused Xiao Xingyun to break down completely. This was the evil monarch's revenge. With the things that the Xiao family had done to the Jun family, how could simply killing them be enough? Right now, Jun Moxie was hidden within the Great Hall, watching the entertaining show by the side. Seeing this bloody scene of kin killing kin, he felt a pleasurable rush in his heart. Xiao Xingyun, you have committed the most reprehensible crimes. But I simply refuse to kill you directly. I want you to kill your own brothers with your hands and see what kind of feelings you undying old bastard will suffer. Is it very enjoyable? Haha. Men, come and drag the traitor Xiao Xingyun away. Han Zhanmeng snorted and commanded coldly. Several Han family elders pushed their way out of the crowd and moved toward Xiao Xingyun. Mo Xiao Yao furrowed his brows tightly. This matter was truly somewhat strange. Shaking his head, he shouted, "Wait!" Han Zhanmeng turned around swiftly and looked at Mo Xiao Yao, asking in a low voice, "Venerable Mo, could it be that you still wish to defend this despicable human scum even at this point? Or do you want to see with your own eyes whether he really has the blood oath tattoos on his body? Does Senior really not care that the glorious reputation of the 3 holy lands that has been sustained for 10,000 years might be destroyed in a single day?" Han Zhanmeng's words were not wrong in any way. The 8th elder and 9th elder had been killed in front of everyone. All of Xiao Xingyun's schemes had also been exposed in full. There was simply no arguing that he was a traitorous man and an extremely shameless person. This point was clearly demonstrated in the eyes of everyone. If the 3 holy lands still wanted to forcefully protect the Xiao family and fight for the position of city lord even at this point, that would be truly too ridiculous. The moment news of this spread out, the 3 holy lands' reputation would become worthless. Thus, this matter had completely put an end to any possibility of the Xiao family's scheme succeeding. Mo Xiao Yao, Wei Kong Kun, and the rest could also only curse darkly in their hearts that the Xiao family was too disappointing. Other than that, there were no other words to say about them. A moment ago, they were still helping the Xiao family speak, but in the blink of an eye, something so ugly happened. This was undoubtedly a harsh slap on their faces. A crisp and loud slap. The so-called slapping someone in their face whilst in their presence was this. Forget helping the Xiao family fulfill their ambition. At this point, if it were possible, Mo Xiao Yao truly wished that he could catch all of the detestable Xiao family members and throttle them one by one. Feck their mothers. Even face slapping should not be done like this. Not only had they been slapped on the face, they didn't even have a target for them to release their anger on. This was truly too intolerable. That's not it. How could this old man wish to help this despicable fellow? Our 3 holy lands have always hated people as contemptible and loathsome as this. Getting rid of their kith and kin as soon as they encountered any trouble. All the goodness in the world was destroyed by these scums. Even this old man was nearly deceived by him. Mo Xiao Yao snorted coldly, and his face turned slightly green. He had been angered greatly, but there were no place for him to give vent. This kind of aggrieved feeling could even cause one's heart to feel constricted. But today's matter is truly too odd. This seat suggests that we do a thorough investigation. Besides, although the Xiao family had committed grave crimes, we are on the verge of being attacked by a great enemy. Now is truly not the time to deal with them. In my opinion, we should temporarily suppress the matter, and after we finish dealing with the great matter before our eyes, we'll settle it together. If they ended up dying in the hands of the Jun family, we'll consider them as having fulfilled their final task of loyalty for Silver City. City Lord Han, do you have any disagreements? Mo Xiao Yao uttered coldly. The veins on his temples throbbed heavily as he spoke, evidence that he'd already been angered to an intolerable state. If someone else disagreed with him now, he might move to kill at any time. Mo Xiao Yao's tolerance had reached the extreme limit. The meaning in Mo Xiao Yao's words included pushing the entirety of the Han family in opposition of the Jun family. This was quite apparently the original intention of the three Holy Lands. That's fine. As long as the seniors from the Holy Lands do not interfere in the internal matters of the Silver City, this junior will naturally listen to your instructions. Han Zhanmeng complimented. He was not a fool. If he insisted on dealing with the Xiao family immediately, or if he stated clearly that he had no intentions on fighting the Jun family, the wandering venerable would most likely turn on him. Besides, the Xiao family situation had changed and the danger was over. They would most likely be unable to create any more trouble. In that case, there was no harm in doing the venerable a favor. Once the battle begins, we'll use the Xiao family as the vanguard. Let these bunch of scums all die. The venerable of life and death, Wei Kong Kun, said with gritted teeth. The ones whom he'd proclaimed as righteous heroes had turned into low-life scums now. His face was still somewhat red even now. Only a short moment ago, he had forcefully twisted logic and called the Xiao family righteous. But before his words had settled into everyone's ears, this happened. Right now, he only felt as if he had been fooled by someone. The rage in his heart could hardly be restrained. This is fine too. Han Zhanmeng nodded, but began to probe tentatively. Since the Xiao family's punishment has been decided and their schemes had been exposed, our Silver City should have no more conflicts with the Jun family now. In that case, this battle, why don't we just call it quits? We'll get to save the lives of our soldiers and the city itself. Isn't it a good thing? Nonsense. Fanciful thinking. You're daydreaming. The three venerables all shouted at the same time. Did you think that we're participating in this battle for the sake of the Xiao family? What is a mere Xiao family worth? Is it worthy enough for our three holy lands to join hands to help them? Mo Xiao Yao looked coldly at Han Zhanmeng as he snorted. Do you wish for your Han family to end up like the Xiao family? Han Zhanmeng immediately felt an unknown fire surge up from his belly. Although these people were seniors from the three holy lands, this is still the Silver Blizzard City. How could they bully them in such a brazen manner, and not leave any face for them? His face turned red and his breath grew heavy. Xue Shuangqing held his arm worriedly and said in a light voice, "Since the senior has said it like that, we'll just leave everything for the senior to decide. Besides, even if the battle starts, our strength is weak and won't be able to help much. Everything shall have to depend on the seniors. We thank the various seniors for your great help." After that, she bowed slightly to Mo Xiao Yao. These words of hers had given the three holy lands sufficient face. Yet, it had a more subtle meaning of letting them extricate themselves from the conflict. This sentence was nearly flawless, and killing many birds with one stone. Mo Xiao Yao looked meaningfully at her for a moment and suddenly burst out into a smile. That's a matter of course. Madame Han is wise and graceful. You have this old man's appreciation. Madame Han smiled faintly and replied, I don't dare. Senior has unparalleled martial prowess. We shall wait for news of Senior's victorious return. At this time, the Han family had thoroughly placed the experts of the Xiao family under their control. After losing the support of the three Holy Lands, they instantly became much more subdued. Actually, even if they didn't have the support of the three Holy Lands, as long as they worked together and Xiao Xingyun had not lost his spirit and personally controlled the situation, it was still possible to fight against the Han family forces. In fact, they could even be in an advantageous position. But right now, Xiao Xingyun was already on the verge of collapsing. The entire Xiao family had also been thrown into disarray. The three Holy Lands had also been thoroughly offended by the Xiao family and had now switched to being enemies with them. If they decided to fight, the ending would be complete annihilation. There wouldn't be any grounds for mercy. Instead, if they did not resist, there might still be a chance for survival. Taking into consideration the relationship with their ancestors, the Han family wouldn't be too ruthless. At least, they would still be allowed to eke out a miserable existence, even if their Xian cultivation was crippled. It would still be better than being dead. Right now, everyone could only pray that the army that the Jun family would not be too strong. In that case, they might still have a chance to escape in the midst of the chaos of battle. That way, there would still be a glimmer of hope. Everyone, go back and rest. Tomorrow morning, we'll be fighting against Tian Fa. We'll kill Jun Moxie and slay Mei Shuiyan. Wei Kong Kun swept his eyes coldly around the hall and said in an unfriendly tone. But at this exact moment, another huge anomaly appeared. What grand words! You aren't even afraid of biting your own tongue. A cold voice suddenly sounded out. A bright sword light flashed, like clear water in the lake of autumn, emerging out of the void. It moved as quickly as lightning, like a meteor. The sword light had only just appeared and the extremely sharp blade had already appeared before Wei Kong Kun's chest. Behind that incredible sword light, there was actually no human figure. It was as if the sword had attacked by itself. The awe-inspiring sharpness of this sword actually caused Wei Kong Kun's hairs to stand up on their ends. This was undoubtedly a sneak attack. It was an ultimate assassination using the peak swordsmanship and peak speed. But the most inconceivable thing was that this dark and sneaky sword actually felt as if it was filled with a grand aura of emperors. It was like a great army charging forward, accompanied by the neighings of 10,000 horses. One could almost see the military flags fluttering high in the sky, filling the entire mountains and wilderness with its fearsomeness and glory. This was a peerless sword that belonged to the most iron-blooded men. The sword light seemed to be mixed with some heroic aura, some domineering aura, some unrestrained aura, some lonely aura, and some archaic and peerless aura. The subtle feelings of such extreme contradictions are surprisingly embodied inside this sword. In the instant that the sword appeared, everyone only felt that the heavens and earth had grown silent. This sword actually seemed to be timeless in this instant. Such harmony and orderliness actually even gave others a serene feeling. Even an expert like Mo Xiao Yao could not help but to gasp in shock the moment he saw this sword. Shaking his head, he praised, "This sword should not belong in this world. This is a shocking sword that should only exist in heaven. A heaven-dazzling sword." But after thinking all this, Mo Xiaoyao suddenly thought of the most important matter: Wei Kong-kun was in danger. Even Mo Xiaoyao himself did not have any confidence in receiving this sword. At the very least, he would still receive a terrible injury. This sword that appeared out of nowhere had come from Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie had used the Great Spirit deterrence technique and directly crushed the 8th Elder and the 9th Elder's mind. Then, he placed some information and pre-designed plans into their subconscious. As expected, the 3 Holy Lands and the Xiao family's every move had been successfully calculated by him. Seeing Xiao Xingyun having his spirit broken and turning into something akin to a bag of walking flesh, and the 3 Holy Lands so humiliated that they nearly hid their heads in their underpants, he could not help but smile smugly. A great anger had finally been expelled. As for this sword strike, it was not something that he had decided on at the moment. Instead, he'd planned this a long time ago. Jun Moxie had already been annoyed with this Wei Kong-kun fellow for a long time. Since the first time he met him, he'd already detested this venerable of life and death. Just the look of this shameless fellow whose skin was as thick as an ox's skin, and the way he strutted about as if he were number 1 under the heavens, caused him to feel a pain in his crotch. In particular, this gross fellow loved to pose as a person of high morals. But his words were filled with shameless words that were disgusting to the extent. Yet, he still had such a righteous look on his face when he spoke those words. This caused Jun Moxie to feel a deeper ache in his nuts, causing him to want to kick that creature's face in. What are you being so proud for? Have a taste of this daddy's sword. That was why, after he finished directing the tragedy of the Xiao family, he did not hesitate and immediately unleashed this shocking sword. With this sword, Jun Moxie was actually aiming to kill a 4th-level venerable. The moment it was unsheathed, the sword swore to not return unless it saw blood. Blood of yellow flame. Powerful and unstoppable. This was how a true peak-level sword struck. This story will be continued to chapter 711. For those of you who are not subscribed yet, please subscribe. The interesting and best stories will be updated. See you again in the next episode.